I think we need to call on your friend, my friend.
Time Wizard!
I think we need to call on your friend, my friend.
Time Wizard! Time!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite time of the week on a new night. This is the fourth dimension in entertainment. Welcome to The Dearly Debated. With your host, taking a nap, Nathanael Peter Levinson. We have in the guest host seat today, Liam Maxwell. And producing for you all this evening, it's Greg Prenz.
Yay!
We're back.
We're back.
I'm back.
Liam's back after one whole week away, which I guess technically since we're every 2 weeks is a month away.
Everyone was asking where I was. I know everyone was missing me.
Sure. Literally the only thing we saw in chat was, where's Liam?
Yeah, and then everyone tuned out when they realized.
Yep.
If I remember
Actually,
correctly,
no,
the
I
only
was
thing we
better
saw
than
in chat was Liam.
Liam saying, where's Liam? Hey guys, where's Liam?
Yeah.
Hey guys.
I made a burner account, and I was like, where's Liam at? I made like 10 burner accounts.
So, Nathaniel, bring the folks up to speed. What are we talking about today? It's been a while since the three of us have been together. So the one that we filmed before, Jay came and replaced Liam
Forever.
for an episode.
This is now
it was a pre-recorded.
Our guest
It was a
Liam Maxwell with our
pre-recorded episode,
our permanent host, our permanent co-host Jay is unavailable.
I'm
this
saying
week.
this is the first time in a while that the three of us have filmed an episode. So
Yeah.
tell the people what to expect. What are we talking about today, man?
We're talking about Dumbo. A movie that I had not seen in... So I'm going to be honest. This movie, I can't remember seeing more than once. I remember seeing it once. I remembered, the basic gist of the story, but basically nothing about the movie as a whole. And then we watched the live-action Dumbo, Tim Burton from 2019, and I've got thoughts.
Liam, did you watch the movie? I feel like you didn't watch it.
What do you mean? Of course I watched the movie. I watched both movies last night. And spoiler alert, my night sucked. I had a horrible night. Okay? This is what I do for this podcast and those viewers, is I put myself through torture for
It
you
was,
guys.
not to get too far ahead of myself, but I did not care for the live action one.
It's funny that Greg thought I didn't watch it.
Well, how about you tell the folks? Give a
I
little
tried
synopsis.
to watch it and I couldn't, so
We're going to talk about the original first, like we normally do. Why don't you
Yeah.
give the folks a little synopsis on what the original Dumbo was about, and then we'll give our thoughts. And we can move on to the live
action, yeah.
live action.
All right. Well, so original Dumbo, it's only an hour long, and it opens with the storks delivering babies to the animals in the circus. It's pretty cute.
Yeah.
Actually, I enjoyed that sequence.
Yeah.
My favorite is the all the animals are showing up and like nuzzling up to their moms, and then the hippopotamus is just like sleeping at the bottom of a pool, and maybe a bunch just lands next to it, and it's all they're just like napping.
No reaction.
Like, no reaction at all. It's
That's
like,
all the
it's
hippos
nap
do
time.
the
It's nap
entire
time.
movie. Like they never move. Presumably, they're just underwater for the whole entire.
What a great
movie.
circus attraction. It's wild. But anyways, so all the babies get delivered, and the mom elephant, the Mrs. Jumbo, she's waiting for her elephant, or for her elephant,
Really
for her baby.
insensitive name, by the way.
for her baby. And there's there's a little like aw at the very beginning, because there'll be a baby sack floating down, a baby bundle floating down, and she'll reach out with the trunk and it'll go somewhere else. And then the next one comes, she reach out and it goes somewhere else. And then for some reason, which is never to me adequately explained, she gets like a special delivery, like a stork that wasn't with the main storks.
I think he was just slacking. I think he was a
special
slacking
job.
stork.
No, Greg is slacking, not figuring out how to wear headphones and a top hat at the same time.
Okay, listen. We have a new rule that the producer has to wear a hat,
Yes.
and I chose a top hat.
Right, give me that top
which
hat.
is
I'll show you how to
genius.
do it. You just gotta do one of these.
Yeah.
It still has the tag on it.
Still has the tag
We're
on it.
professional.
Yeah, we're a hat pod now.
There you go. Yes, we are a I can't remember the name for people who do hats. A haberdashery.
Haberdashery.
We're a haberdasher's podcast now, as you can
See,
see.
if I put the headphones on the back like that, they just start falling off.
Well, then I told
tighten
Liam, you just do
them.
the Geordie LaForge. There you go. Boom. It looks super
it out.
professional.
Actually, that might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do that.
Figure it out.
Figure it out, Greg.
You're the producer.
You're the producer. You're the one
Figure it out.
You're supposed to be professional.
Did you guys think storks were how babies were made when you guys were younger?
I never got that.
I never.
That never
No,
was like a thing.
I watched 9 Month Miracle the first time my mother was pregnant with the next child.
Why don't you explain what 9 month?
Do either of you guys know about 9 Month Miracle?
It's like a
9 Month Miracle
Christian-
was like it's not Christian. It's just a well, actually, I guess it was, but it's just a program like a educational software program for kids that walks you through the stages of pregnancy.
Does it walk you through what happens
It
before
walks
pregnancy?
you through everything. It has videos.
So that was the birds and the bees for you.
it.
Was 9 month whatever.
I don't remember if they kind of. I think it's been a very long time since I watched it, but I think they kind of brush over the how do you get pregnant part
When a
little
man
bit.
loves a woman.
I don't remember it starting with that, but I mean, I guess they explain that part. But really, it's about pregnant. It's mostly about the pregnancy itself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, here's what your mom's going through, and here's how you can be, looking out for her. She's gonna be feeling sick, morning sickness, and things like that.
Yeah.
And then here's, when she's having the baby, here's what's happening. And pretty good program.
Nice. Just beautiful. Just curious.
I do remember.
So you,
I'm
wait,
about that. I'm about
so
to.
you
I'm
weren't
about to
on
out
this-
some
you
secret
weren't
Nathaniel
on this-
shame.
this
Ready for
store.
me to out some secret Nathaniel shame?
Yeah.
There was a part of the program where you could look at human models, and of course you could make them nude. And little young Nathaniel was like, "What's going on here? Wait a minute! I heard that voice. I was like, what? Did anyone else hear that voice?"
That's a good one.
Okay, so the storks are
So the
bringing.
storks-
we
the storks
literally
delivery-
got
there's a-
like 3 seconds
Hey,
into this movie.
what are we talking about?
and ironically, the train. It starts with a train moving along, and we've got derailed real fast. So
Ooh.
think about that
Intentional?
So, there's like a special stork delivery just for Mrs. Jumbo. So this stork, he was just like a bumbling
So
blockhead. He makes a special delivery.
fun fact: that was the voice of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah,
Wow, that is
Yeah.
a fun fact.
yeah. So he delivers. He goes, finds Mrs. Jumbo, gives the baby, and then gives like this song speech thing,
Yeah.
which was weird because none of the other babies got that. So I
He was a
this is-
special-
he
special
was a special
boy.
baby. So he's sitting there, and all the other elephants. It's so funny because he obviously they're like, oh yeah, the storks deliver babies, and then they get into the carriage car where all the elephants are, the female elephants are, and they're like, we got a baby for Mrs. Jumbo, and all the elephants whose baby it's not are like, scandal, me no. I was like, but okay, so clearly something happened to get this baby going.
Right. That's a great point.
So
what
basically-
happened?
Probably something you're not
You have to have sex in order for the stork to
to bring you a baby. Yeah, it's like
it's
like making a purchase on Amazon.
it's just that pregnancy
You have to have sex
is
with
the
the
offensive
storks?
part.
No.
The storks involved.
Oh my
in it?
gosh!
What?
Liam.
What? These were questions I came up with in my mind. What is going on here?
Ooh.
What is
So many
going on
questions
here?
about the mechanics of this,
It's not,
but
yeah, it's not correct.
That's not how the
anatomically.
force works.
I had that on there somewhere. Maybe not a mass board. Yeah. So and then Dumbo's sitting there all cute like, and they're like, "Oh, he's so cute," and then he sneezes, and his ears go, whoop, and you find out he's a freak, and so all the elephants are laughing. All the other elephants are laughing at him, which makes him sad. And then Mama elephant goes all Mama bear, and then so.
Do you want me to give the
Yeah,
synopsis?
in the actual like circus act, so they go and they set up the circus, and then in the actual circus act, some of the kids start making fun of Dumbo, and so Mama Jumbo comes in, intervenes, and like smacks the shit out of some kids.
They deserved it.
They
They
did
did.
deserve
They
it.
were
There's
little
no question.
brats.
They actually deserved it. But so Mama Jumbo gets locked up. Dumbo's on his own, and they make him take part of this clown show. So
Well, So you skipped the part where he meets Timothy Mouse and Timothy
I
Mouse.
thought that took part after the first clown show, or was that before
No,
the
no,
first
no.
clown
So
show?
Timothy Mouse is the one who
no, you're right.
convinces him for the tower.
So Jumbo, Mama Jumbo gets locked up, and so all the other elephants are just being really mean to Dumbo. And Timothy Mouse comes in and is like, "What's up? I'm a mouse," and scares them all. It's like, "You all suck," and then basically takes Dumbo under his wing and is like, "Don't worry, Dumbo, I'm going to take care of you. Don't feel that." It's interesting because all the animals talk except Dumbo. Dumbo never talks. I mean, he's a kid, but
Yeah, I mean, he literally was just born
Yeah.
via stork.
sure.
Like he was
but
delivered.
Timothy
he was
basically
delivered
takes
via stork minutes before that.
Yeah, Timothy basically takes Dumbo under his wing and is like, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." He ends up being part of this clown thing where he has to like jump off this really high tower. And all the circus performers are like, "Wow, that was so good." What was the things they said? We had them in rolling down the aisles or something like that. We were rolling the aisles, something like we were rolling the aisles.
We were rolling the aisles, just meaning like
Yeah, I know what it means, but they kept saying that, and they're like so proud of themselves as to how well they've done. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna make it even bigger, make the jump, build the fire 10 times hotter."
wait, time out.
What did I miss?
You missed the elephant tower. That was a disaster.
Oh, right. You're right. Again, it's an hour-long movie, and it's a bit scattered, so my brain's jumping.
The scenes
around.
the scenes are like 2 minutes long.
Yeah, it's very so right. So they do the clown show, and then the director of the carnival is in his tent, and he's basically like, "Oh, what are we gonna do? Okay, we'll have this giant tower of elephants," and it goes horribly.
No, it doesn't happen in that order. Liam, you give the synopsis.
what am I missing?
So the
Okay.
elephants
Like nothing happens in this freaking movie.
and then they drink bleach.
No,
And they
that's
get
not
high.
it. All right, I'll give the quick synopsis. It's an hour-long movie. This will be really fast, and then we can get into everybody's thoughts. Okay, so after
So disrespectful.
after the mama, which is named Jumbo,
Mrs.
Jumbo, slaps shit out of these kids that were making fun of Dumbo. She gets locked away in this little house or whatever, and that's when Timothy Mouse meets Dumbo, and Timothy Mouse discovers that Dumbo can. Or he doesn't discover that Dumbo can fly yet.
Yeah, that doesn't happen until after they get drunk.
However, he walks. He's the one that sneaks into the director of the whole circus's room, and he like whispers into his ear while he's sleeping, "Hey, you need to make this giant tower of elephants and put Dumbo on top, and that's going to be your piece of resistance. Like it's going to be amazing." And he's basically just doing it because he feels bad that everybody was just making fun of Dumbo, and now Dumbo doesn't have a mom. And so out of sympathy, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to make you a star. Don't worry about it." So he goes and he whispers this into the guy's ear. And so the guy the next day is like, "Hey, I'm going to make a tower full of elephants and Dumbo's going to be on top and it's going to be amazing." And Dumbo freaks out, trips on his ears on the way to jump onto like the catapult that would launch him to the top. And in tripping on his ears, falls into the big stack of elephants and destroys everything. They break down the entire circus. So the guy's livid. And he just turns him into a clown, and then from that point, it's what Nathanael was saying. Yeah, you just missed that little part.
Right.
And now he's a clown.
Yeah, now he's a clown.
Now the first show
goes really well, and so all the clowns are like, "Oh, we're gonna do it even bigger."
Yeah,
and they're like partying, but Dumbo's like distraught and crying. Mm-hmm. And so they're partying, and then they're like walking out. And they drop a bottle of champagne into a bucket.
You're missing another Nathanael.
What? Okay, fine.
The most beautiful point in the movie is when he has the moment with his mom, and he like Timothy Mouse is like, "Hey, you did a good job. I'm going to take you over to the jail where your mom is, and you guys are going to have the moment." And it's one of the most acclaimed songs in Disney history.
I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot that part.
Baby Mine.
Baby Mine.
It made me cry.
The only good part of the movie.
It was amazing.
I don't remember.
Goes over and she can't even.
Can't see him.
I'll save this for my thoughts. But anyways, they have a moment. So he's kind of in his feelings. He comes back and the clowns had been partying, and a bottle of champagne had fallen into a bucket of water where he goes to drink the water.
I remember this. He has the hiccups. So the mouse is like, "Oh, drink the water."
Yeah.
He'll cure your hiccups. And then they get drunk, and for some reason, that makes them have this incredibly long hallucination, like acid trip.
Yeah.
That's the pink elephants on parade.
Which is like the bubbles start turning into
the
pink
bubbles
elephants.
start turning into pink elephants. And not just pink elephants, though. What was really funny was
and like race
multiple
cars.
times when they're singing about pink elephants on parade, there was a completely different colored animal there. I'm like, that's not a pink elephant. That's like a yellow snake. Where's my pink elephant? Anyways, so interesting fact about that is they recycled that animation for the Heffalumps song from Winnie the Pooh. I did look at it. I checked because I'm watching. There's the one part where the elephants are doing like this dance, this like waltz dance. I'm like, that looks exactly like Heffalumps and Woozles.
Yeah.
So they reused. So back in the day, Walt Disney reused a lot of animation. So you can actually look. There are some very notable examples where they took some of the old stuff and basically, I think Robin Hood did this, and they just basically traced over something they had already done.
Yeah.
To fit the new movie. And apparently this is one of them. Apparently Gopher, who wasn't in the original A.A. Milne books, was from Lady and the Tramp. Because Walt Disney was like, you know what this needs? This needs a gopher. And that's how we got Gopher, who was a great character. So sometimes it's okay to add things.
And although it did look like champagne, through some half-assed research, I read that it was absinthe.
Yeah. So there is a rumor.
Damn, so he got crumbed.
And there was some controversy.
Yeah, so there's
Some controversy.
Definitely a lot of
About
controversy.
a kid
Underage drinking.
even in the 50s they cared about this.
Amidst other
Or the 40s
controversial
when it
points of this movie,
Elephant laws were really serious.
underage drinking was frowned upon, even back in these days, for elephants.
There's quite a few controversial things that happen in this movie, but we'll get to
Oh yeah,
that.
I haven't gotten to that part yet. So okay, so this huge trip happens and they wake up in a tree. Like at the top of a tree. And then these
Crows.
jive crows show up. That's like the nicest way I can say it.
Honestly,
They're-
they were awesome though.
yeah,
they were great.
And this is the thing, like you can say that is an offensive stereotype and I wouldn't disagree with you. But also like they're great characters.
not
Like, they're
negative.
cool guys. They come over
Yeah.
and they're not like mean to Dumbo. They see Dumbo and they're not being mean. They're laughing because they're like, how did you get up in a tree? But
Well, let's say this for our
and then
thoughts.
they actually like help him out. But
Just
yeah, I can understand why
Yeah.
you would be like, okay, let's go. Well, kind of like the Indians in Peter Pan,
Sure.
where it's like this is clearly a stereotypical depiction, but also it's not like they're like, look at
it's
these
nothing-
horrible people.
it's
So
nothing
it's
you
a
just-
little
Nobody would make that these days. For
right.
Sure.
It was for sure.
They were like, "Hey, soul brother."
Literally, there was just crows speaking jive,
That made me laugh.
like jive crows. That's the
And
that's
then
the best.
Timothy
that's the best
Mouse
thing.
with his accent was just like, "Hey, yo, I ain't your brother, man."
But anyways, so they give him a feather, and they're like, "This is a magic feather. You're an elephant with giant ears. Maybe you can fly." And so he finds out while he's holding the feather, oh, he can fly. And so they go back to the circus, and they're going to do it. And then he loses the feather, and realizes the real feather was the friends he made along the way, and realizes he can fly without the feather. Like Dumbo flying happens in like the last 5 minutes of the movie,
Yeah.
There was literally 7 minutes left in the entire movie, and then he flies.
and then he flies.
And I kind of liked that.
And then-
it led up to the crescendo of that, where we'll get into the live action, where it just kind of like, because that flying scene happened so early in the live action, it kind of took the luster away from it as the movie progressed.
Well,
I don't know if you
there's-
guys felt that
there's a
way as
lot
well.
that-
when I
live
talk about,
action.
I got something to say about the live action that I think will paint the picture for everything we talk about. But let's finish the original first.
So, anyways, after Dumbo flies in the circus, they're like, "Wow, he's amazing!" And then he basically gets royal treatment. He gets his mom back.
He gets his mom back,
And
hooray!
he's then
Hollywood
the last
contract.
scene is him flying behind the train that's holding all the animals, and his mom has like a luxury suite, and he's just flying behind with all the crows, and like they're just like, "Hey, like, yo, that's
Yeah,
a cool
they're like,
elephant,
hey,
dog."
yo, that elephant is really cool. And
All
everyone
right.
pulls out a trumpet and starts playing. No, that didn't.
We're
actually.
dangerously close to getting canceled.
to get
you
canceled.
guys.
We're no.
There's
The reason
nothing-
we've already gotten canceled because of the Emma Watson thing. So
That's true.
It's,
yeah,
it's already
we're
over.
well past that point.
All right, this is.
I'd like to give my thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
of
for it.
course. Let's hear it.
I think some of the themes didn't hit quite as deep as the other Disney movies we've watched, the originals. The unconditional love of a mother was cool. The baby mine scene was the standout for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the big theme of everyone has something special about them and you shouldn't judge others. It's fine, I guess. I'd say it's
fun.
not really like...
I really like judging people, but I guess if it's not your
it
thing,
didn't really hit.
it's fine.
It didn't really hit any sort of chords within me.
As the viewers are exercising their patience with how Liam looks right now, wearing his
What?
pretentious
Excuse
hat.
me.
talking
I
about,
have the
dude?
most
They're like,
pretentious
hey,
hat.
maybe
Don't even
this
try.
asshole
I am
actually
the ringmaster.
I just bought this
My
hat the other
hat is
day.
10 times as pretentious as Liam's. He has no idea how pretentious. You will see how pretentious I can be.
This is a pretentious hat. What do you call it? Is it a newsboy?
It's like a cabbie hat.
Is it? Yeah, a cabbie hat.
You think like London cabbies are pretentious? What's wrong with you? That's the proletariat.
That's the working man. I'm wearing a
come
working
on, man. That's
hat.
blue collar.
I might as well be wearing a hard hat.
I'm not
Greg.
voting for Greg for president. Just tell you that much.
Yeah, it was just it was short enough where I was fine with it. If it went on for longer, I probably would have disliked it, like aggressively disliked it. But it was pretty unoffending. It only took up 64 minutes of my time. It was fine. It was fine. As far as the originals are concerned, it's going to be bottom of the barrel for me. But yeah, it was fine. And I had the most fun looking up the controversial things about this movie. I had more fun looking them up.
So the
than
crows
watching
and the
movie.
absinthe obviously was controversial. What else? Was there anything else?
There was the scene where Timothy Mouse is whispering into the guy's ear. Is like this is half-assed research. Is like a play on a wet dream because he keeps saying climax, 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 like over and over again, over and over
I guess
again.
if you're being Randy.
and I probably think
He
about
really
it.
does.
He really does say climax.
he says climax
over
like
and over.
9
the whole time that
times.
I'm like, man, they really love this climax.
Yeah.
word.
Well, I mean,
the whole
like,
time that he's having the dream.
it was the I guess I could I guess I can see that. Although that seems like something that now you'd be like, okay, they're clearly doing something there. I don't think
to be
back then.
fair, I read that theory before the scene got to that point. So I went into that scene knowing that. So then I was like, oh yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Filthy.
So maybe
Filthy
that
mind.
affected my viewing of it. And then the other one was the guys setting up the circus were African American.
Yeah, I honestly thought
faceless. They didn't have any faces.
thought that was the more offensive thing. Was you have all these black men setting up the railroad and singing about how they work like
and
slaves.
Their song was like,
and they don't get paid enough, and then they go and waste all their money, presumably on like gambling or drink.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's the offensive part, not the Jive Crows who are kind of just nice dudes.
Right. It was a dark movie.
Yeah.
Dumbo's severely depressed and crying like 90% of
the
it.
time.
Like it didn't really make me feel warm and fuzzy.
Man, those other elephant women. Sheesh.
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Tough hangs. All right. So
fortunately,
those are my
Dumbo
thoughts.
was based red-pilled Chad. He didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah. It didn't make me warm and fuzzy like my favorite
Dumbo
Disney.
a Chad?
So.
That's the. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Do you see those ears? Dumbo was indeed a Chad. Like, there's no question about it. He had Chad ears.
Yeah.
No one has ears like that and is not a Chad.
It, again, also common theme. I had a certain view of it, and then I watched the live action one, and my view of the original increased a little bit.
I agree with that. So I just want to touch on the absinthe. So absinthe was illegal for quite a while. It actually just got re-legalized, like I want to say early 2000s, might be earlier than that, because absinthe is a liquor that's made from wormwood, and it contains a chemical called thujone, which in very high concentrations is a hallucinogen. So, it was assumed that, if you drink a lot of absinthe, you'll trip. You'll hallucinate. And so it was banned for a long time. But it turns out that to get enough thujone to hallucinate, you'd have to drink so much alcohol that you would die of alcohol poisoning. So it's like... so, no, you cannot get high from drinking wormwood, from drinking absinthe. You just get drunk.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is, what was your guys' stance on Timothy Mouse?
I thought it was just a good dude.
I thought he was shady.
What you said this before the podcast, and both Greg and I look at each other like, what is he talking about?
I thought he was a little shady, man.
Just because he has a New York accent, he talks like this.
I think he was out for his own good. I think he was playing Dumbo
he didn't have to step up though, and he got nothing out of it.
Did he not get anything out of it? He probably got fame and fortune out of being the
maybe,
head,
but he had no idea
caretaker.
Dumbo could fly.
Listen, he took advantage of Dumbo.
I
at
disagree.
a young age.
Okay, so he definitely did get fame as far as like the ending scene in the last 2 minutes of the movie. You see a news clipping article that says, Timothy Mouse brings forth whatever.
Exactly.
And
I
it's
don't
like
know
him
that.
signing something. However, Nathaniel's right. He did not befriend him when he knew he could fly. In fact, none of them knew he could fly until the end. He was trying desperately to find a way to get him. Like, he basically knew what Dumbo needed to do in order to be received well from people. It's almost like he represented the person who's been through the world and like kind of been through the rough side of things. And he's like, hey, listen, these people aren't going to give you unconditional love like your mom. You actually have to have value for them to like you have to be valuable to them. But I'm going to help you out with that. We're going to find some way to make you valuable.
And I got the implication that he's in a parallel situation to Dumbo. Because he's a mouse. What does a mouse do at a circus? Right? Well, the elephants, when he's freaking out, the elephant's like, yeah, I'm a mouse. What are you going to do about it? Right? So I got the impression, we didn't really explore that too much, but I got the impression that he feels like Dumbo's in the same spot he is, where he feels like he's pretty much useless because he's, again, a mouse in a circus. Like, what does he do?
Well, I'm not.
And so he's like teaching Dumbo, like, hey.
I'm more curious as to why Liam thinks he's shady.
Yeah, what's shady
a little
about him?
sketchy. I just think, I don't know. I'm not convinced his intentions were pure.
He literally said right at the beginning, he's like, who would make fun of a little kid just for the way they look? He's like, who would do such a thing? Like, how are you gonna come and talk to just because of the way he looks?
Maybe it was his
He's
accent.
got
Come on
big
the
ears, but I think they're cute.
I think that's your problem.
kind
You're
of
just
accent is
racist
that?
against New York people. Definitely.
Hey, I'm from the Northeast, baby. You know I love the Northeast.
Uh-huh.
And even so, I've seen.
No, you're
listen,
a Sox fan. You're like he's a Yankee fan.
Listen, okay.
That's what went through your mind. That is what went through your mind.
Okay,
You're like,
maybe I
this
need
sounds
to
like a
check
Yankee
myself.
fan.
I need to check my bias.
I mean, you do need to check yourself.
Listen, all I'm saying is, up in the Northeast, I've met plenty of Timothy Mouses. Okay,
And they've all been sketchy.
and there's something up. There's something up with those types. All right,
Oh boy.
just felt like it needed addressing.
So, do you have any more thoughts on the movie before I give mine?
Nope.
Okay, my thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right. I mean, so okay, there's clearly a theme of like familial love that's pretty powerful,
Yeah.
and then there's obviously the theme of, you don't. Everyone has something that makes them special, and things that people might perceive as weaknesses can be your strength, right? I do think there's a good lesson there. But other than that, most of the movie's just a fever dream. Especially the pink elephant part. But all of it's just kind of, okay,
Yeah.
that happened. Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt
concur.
like to me, it felt like a long episode of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Better animated than a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, but it did just feel kind of like a long episode of a cartoon show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I
Yeah, Greg, tell
I
us
fell in love.
tell us how this just like exploded your feels. You were just on your knees weeping over the Jive Crows.
You're so soft, dude. You're so soft.
Come on, we're not supposed to have emotions. We're men. What's wrong with you?
Okay, guys, listen. I'm not gonna look. This isn't the greatest movie ever. Okay, but
Yeah. So Liam for the live actions. You Liam for the
Yeah.
the
This is a
animated
Liam
ones.
take. This
This
is a
is a
Liam
Liam
take.
take right here.
It is a
what
Liam
is
take.
I Liam?
You know exactly
you
what
defend
he
a movie
means.
beyond what is actually there.
You're doing this for clicks, bro.
Yeah,
Oh
come on.
my
We all know how you operate.
guys
Love
are
you, Greg.
terrible.
Yes, we are.
We've been apart for too long.
Yeah,
This is
it's,
basically
you
just-
know you missed this for the one
Right.
week that Liam wasn't here.
I need to. The thing is, I just need to culture you guys.
Yeah,
Apparently,
here we go.
you guys
And he
are-
calls me pretentious.
you guys are-
He uses the word culture.
You guys might as well be
So
the
in
people
Citizen
making fun of
Kane-
Dumbo.
Oh, how dare you!
Dumbo was a representation of the movie. I'm just kidding.
You're Dumbo, and we're
not
we're
the
the other elephants.
The
We get
Dumbo is you.
it. Go ahead,
You
Greg.
were dumb.
And if you
us.
hated Dumbo, then that indicates that you really hate yourself.
Yeah, you need to do some
All right, Greg.
reflecting.
We're gonna stop now. Go ahead.
Greg's just gonna be silent the rest of the. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so you guys keep saying that, and then immediately
Would we do that, Greg? Would we? You think
on,
we would just
Greg.
come over here and like, Greg, go.
All right, Greg, spit it out.
But anyway, so as I. All right.
Okay, so
All right, I'm sitting back from my
Dumbo the original. It's it's the shortest feature film movie that Disney's ever produced. It's an hour and 6 minutes long.
But
Yeah,
I hate to interrupt you. What does feature length mean? Like, does that have an actual definition? This is an actual question. Does feature length have an
Actually a
actual
good
definition?
it's actually a good
Okay,
question.
Greg, you keep talking. I'm gonna look this up.
Okay,
Feature
yeah. I'm
length.
not sure. I'm sure what specifies, but I know that it does count as a feature movie. Like it's a whatever. But anyways, so it's an hour and 6 minutes long, and yeah, I mean it starts off super like kind of basic. Like you're getting it's a pretty long exposition, to be honest. It's like 15 minutes into it, which in reality is a quarter of the movie for the storks to do all the dropping, and then the stork to finally drop the baby to the one mom, and pretty much instantly you get the idea that he's going to be made fun of. He's got super big ears. As a viewer, he's adorable. I thought that he's one of the cutest animations I've ever. I think one of the cutest. I mean, if you think Baby Yoda is cute, I think Dumbo's far cuter, even in just like the cartoon animation version. And anyway, so you get this little elephant comes out. It's adorable. As a human being, you find it super cute, and as these other elephants and animals, they think it's deformed and weird. And then it gets in front of people. Dumbo gets in front of people, and they all start making fun of it. And the mom steps in, and it has to protect her child. But to your point, yeah, it is sad, right? So Dumbo's crying lots of the time. The kids are evil, and it's also like that old animation where like the kids have really big ears and they barely look human. What is that animation called?
It's called ugly ass animation.
It's just like animation from the 40s. So this was made in the 40s. Like this is like
those kids looked even more than in Pinocchio looked like donkeys.
Yeah. Like they were like hideous children.
Hideous, bucktooth.
They're all yelling at Dumbo,
and that's not racist. They were all white.
and you really do get the feel though in the movie that you're like, this is just it's such a creepy place. Like,
and what's really interesting about that too is other than the direct, like the circus director and the clowns that you don't actually see them talking. You just see them like shadows. Those kids, those horrible kids, are like the only human characters in the movie.
Yeah, and because most of the time you're dealing with interaction between the elephants and Dumbo or Timothy Mouse and Dumbo. But so the mother stands up for Dumbo and gets locked away, and like that to me, at least as a viewer, was like, okay, you're sympathizing with Dumbo because he's so cute, and you're having to watch him cry, and so even as a viewer, you're like, oh, this is sad. But then the mom gets taken away, who's the only one stepping up for him. And so you really do, at least I felt very much like, okay, well, this movie's going to be horrifying. That's it. And then so Timothy Mouse kind of steps in and sees that all the other elephants are like, oh, you're a mess. Like, you're so ugly. Like, this is kind of gross. Let's agree that he's not even an elephant. We'll just not call him an elephant at all. And Timothy Mouse is like, how could you guys do this? Like, he's like the representation of like a good buddy. He might not know the right answers. Like he doesn't have a solution to Dumbo's problems necessarily. He's like, oh, well, I'll go and convince the director to like make you the star of the show.
Wingman, in a literal sense at the end of the movie, but he's literally he's his boy.
Yeah, it's and I did not get the sketchy feel.
Yeah,
that Liam got.
I think you pulled that right out of your keister.
I think it was literally just.
I think you're profiling this
just
mouse.
the
What's the
accent.
chat? Back me up.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Was Timothy Mouse?
There's no way I was the only person that.
I keep calling Nathan Lane
that.
Timothy Lane, and I don't know why. Through the entirety of Lion King, I kept saying Timothy Lane, but his name is Nathan Lane, and I don't know why I kept saying
That's
Timothy.
right, you did, yeah.
Probably because it's Timon, and I mixed Timon and Nathan up to get Timothy. Yeah. So I think that's what
Timothy seemed like he was trying to like sell me a car. The whole time.
But it's only got 10,000 miles on it.
Like literally, that is
carburetor, it's a perfect
100%
condition.
racism because
No, it's not. I'm one of them.
other than his accent, nothing that
I
he
am
said
a nor'easter.
nothing
I'm
that,
allowed to say this.
nothing that he said was remotely like a car salesman. He 100% from the moment he saw Dumbo felt bad for him, and like a friend who again doesn't necessarily have the answers and the solutions is like, oh, I got your back. I know what we're gonna do, and it's not necessarily the right answer, right? Like it's a disaster.
How can I make money off of
destroys the
this?
circus. It's not what he's thinking.
Except he didn't do that.
Liam's gonna die on this hill.
This is my take of the episode.
Anyways, so you get Dumbo attempting this and it failing, and now Dumbo's devastated still because mom is still not there, and Timothy's like, hey, you know what? I just thought of it. Like, I can go take you to see your mom. So he takes Dumbo to go see his mom, who's in this. It's like an individual, like car of a train, but she's inside all chained up, and it says Mad Elephant on the outside. And so she hears him coming along, and she's struggling to get to the window. And she can't quite make it, so she sticks her trunk out. And then the trunk extends out and starts to, like, cradle Dumbo. And you can see Dumbo at first is just kind of, like, reaching his trunk up to touch the mom's trunk. And once he realizes it's her, by the way, it's, like, caressing his face, he, like, you know, he breaks down and he cries, and she holds him and she sings this song, Baby Mine, which is amazing. I mean, that song, man, just, I can't even think about it. I learned how to play it on the ukulele pretty much instantly because I was like, this song is so good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I don't remember any part of that.
Oh, man.
I remember that. I agree with you, Greg. I really like that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful moment, and it just accented at the fact that the mom can't even quite see Dumbo. She's just reaching her trunk out. And so, like, yeah, it just takes away any kind of, like, you know, like, this character's not babying her child because she gets the satisfaction of like finding her identity and having a kid or something like that. She doesn't even get to see him. She's just comforted at the fact that she can hold him and make him feel a little bit better. She knows how bad this must be for him. She's not thinking about herself being in a jail at all, or the fact that she's not whining that, oh, I don't get to be with my kid. She's still thinking about Dumbo. And it was just a beautiful depiction of that. But the movie continues on, obviously, and then, yeah, Pink Elephants on Parade comes in, and I mean, yes.
He's like, oh, I'm sad about my mom. Let's get wasted.
Yeah, so he drinks this.
Drink my sorrows
drinks
away.
The absinthe.
And, well, you say absinthe. So absinthe is just like, it's like whiskey
It's liquor,
strength. It's
yeah.
liquor. They clearly dropped a bottle of champagne. It's bubbling and everything. So that's clearly not absinthe. Like, guys, come on, get your alcohol straight. So it's a little embarrassing that I can very quickly identify bottles of alcohol. So, like, I was watching Only Murders in the Building, and someone's standing around with this bottle. I'm like, oh, that's mezcal. And I saw, like, the top one bottle. I'm like, oh, that's Jameson. Then it comes to shots Jameson. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
So are you saying it was not absinthe?
It definitely wasn't absinthe. It was clearly champagne or sparkling wine.
It looked like champagne.
Are you
because there was
saying
a
my
cork.
half-ass research is wrong?
I'm saying that whoever was like, well, that's why they were tripping because it was absinthe. I'm like, well, it couldn't have been absinthe because it was bubbling. Like, unless they made bubbly absinthe, which doesn't make sense. Anyways.
All right, so we have one person agreeing with Liam.
Let's go!
Oh, it's all
let's
over. No, that's
go.
the mistake. You don't. You give him an inch and he'll take a mile.
Yes.
He
Who
also-
was that?
This is DJ Ungleskog.
That's
Thank you, DJ
Abigail.
Ungleskog.
That's Abigail.
She also expressed that Dumbo's mom needed a drink 100%.
Yes.
But
Amen.
Dumbo's mom didn't drink.
I cannot.
Dumbo drank, and Dumbo's what, like 2?
Consider this another win in my column.
So Pink Elephants on
We
Parade.
should have a Liam W and Liam L counter. And just
You
put
wouldn't
it-
even need the L. You wouldn't even need the L.
I ain't sure about
It's
that one.
Only wins.
Sorry, Greg.
So Pink Elephants on Parade proceeds, and you're right. This is like the longest sequence of the movie, and it is 100% trip. It's like the entirety of Alice in Wonderland crunched into. I mean, it's like 6 minutes long, and it's a song that's singing Pink Elephants on Parade while you see these bubbles coming out of Dumbo that are turned into pink elephants. And Nathaniel's right; they're not just pink, and they're not just elephants. They just turn into all kinds of weird things. But at the time, I think that was a feat of animation. Like that was
Yeah,
that was
that
was
definitely
kind
felt
of
like-
the equivalent of a very big spectacle in CGI that you might see now. But like
that's definitely what it felt like. Is that the animators were just. It was done so that the animators could do something interesting. It didn't really serve any purpose in the plot, or that they came up with a song and they're like, we don't know what to do with this song, and the animators like, let's just have an acid trip.
Yeah. The reason for doing that, at least according to them, was that they thought it was too dark of a movie and they needed some point of something to
silly.
lighten the mood.
So to lighten the mood,
And-
you give me this horror acid trip. Man, people in the I guess you got to consider this is around like World War I, World War II. Yeah. So to them, something that seems really horrifying to us might be like, it's just pink elephants, not people dying in trenches.
It's exactly like
it's perspective.
My one thought on that whole thing was, oh geez, in the 40s, this must have meant happy clapping and cheering.
It's like, hey, we got to drink champagne. Like, everything's great.
How messed up was the
pretty messed up.
Bad.
World War II.
It's
pretty bad.
Do you have
About
to
as
be
bad of a time period as
to be like,
it's not
like I'm
great.
entranced by all this stuff? But so that sequence goes on, and I agree, it was a mess. Although it did arouse a lot of thought as to like, what are you trying to do here? I had to look it up. So interesting to hear about that, but also just does not hit now at all.
Yeah, it was definitely like a strange aside that also takes up a large portion of a not very long movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Again, when you talk about something being 6 minutes in a movie that's an hour,
it's
and
a tenth
5
of the
minutes.
runtime. It's 10% of the runtime was
it's
ridiculous.
a huge portion, and it's not a song that has any
I think
doesn't
it's
do
sticking
anything
power.
to the story at all.
Nope.
So
again, the only thing that popped out for me was that when the answer was like, "Oh, they clearly copied this for Heffalumps and Woozles."
yeah, that part, whatever.
A far superior song, I might add.
Yeah, I thought the Crows were actually really cool characters. I mean,
Yeah.
I honestly thought if you made an entire movie about them and just like, I mean, they're jazz cats. Like that's what they're like. They're just jazzy dudes. And yes, the depiction is that the majority of people playing jazz back then were black guys, and
Yeah,
so
you could argue that they're coded as black, but it's like people back then would have known if you knew. They would have known if you went to a jazz bar, you would meet black people who talk like that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like
It's not
It's
an-
a weird. It's this weird thing where you can see that it's clearly stereotypical, but also it's clearly drawing on. Oh, these. I went and hung out at a jazz bar, and these people walked around and talked like this.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to incorporate that. This experience that I've had with actual people into my thing. It didn't. It was a stereotype, but it wasn't like a negative. I didn't see how it's a negative stereotype.
I will say, I don't know if you guys
Like, they were cool.
I don't
Like,
know
those
if you
crows were
guys,
cool.
Like,
I
saw
wanna go hang
anything
out with them.
about this, but again, this is half-assed research. I'm not trying to be funny. The main crow's name was Jim.
Oh, that's I can see how that might be a problem.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of their names.
Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Was
no,
the
I got it.
name
I
of
got
the
it.
crow. You're following?
I'm following. This is in the 40s though. Jim Crow was the 60s. Jim Crow laws in the 40s. I don't know. I don't know my history well enough.
I mean, I understand if a stereotype like that would bother you. For me personally, there wasn't anything negative about the way they were acting. Like they weren't.
Yeah.
If anything, they were by far the coolest
Yeah.
characters
Yeah.
in the movie.
Again, I think the more problematic part is all the guys putting up although the elephants were doing it too. That was interesting. The elephants are like helping with the construction of the circus. But yeah, that part where it's like a bunch of black men singing about we work as artist slaves, we get paid barely anything, and then we go spend all our money on like gambling and drinking. And like, okay, that's problematic, right? That to me, that was way more of an issue.
They were for sure characters as far as like the way they were depicted. Like they were crows, so they were already blackbirds, and they were acting and talking like, I guess, like atypical.
They were jive
jazzy
crows.
black guys, and that time. I didn't think the stereotype was negative, but it for sure is a stereotype.
Yeah, for sure.
So I understand that being controversial. It didn't necessarily offend me personally, but they come in and they kind of deduce that, hey, since you were in a tree, it must have been because you flew because of your ears, and they kind of sing that. It's a really catchy song about like I've seen a horse fly, but I've never seen like an elephant fly.
And then the live action completely ruins that part.
We'll get to that one. So anyways, and at the end, right, so you have your last 6 minutes of the movie, he's flying around, and one of my favorite parts of the movie is like Dumbo just sucks up all the peanuts. He's like with his nose, and I'm literally thinking, I'm like, oh, like that's the first thing he thinks of when he's experiencing freedom. He's like, I'm gonna go eat some peanuts, and then he just pelts all the other elephants with the peanuts rather than eat them. He's like, and just lays with. They're all like, fuck, just kidding. And I'm like, that made me laugh out loud because it just caught me off guard. I thought for sure he's sucking up these peanuts and eating them because he likes them as snacks. And instead, he uses them just to pelt, like rain down on all these other like
all I was thinking was
elephants. And I'm like, that was great.
I was thinking
What a
about Genie as the
great
bee.
way.
Mayday.
I mean, so I guess my ending thought is that if a movie that's an hour and 6 minutes long can have a good theme, like a theme of any kind that's just kind of like it's low hanging fruit, but it's like, hey, don't judge people. Also, like this is what unconditional love looks like, as opposed to love that's based off of like how somebody might treat you, which is what he gets at the end, which is, hey, now that you're useful, everybody wants to love you and everybody wants to come around you. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't have the foundational mother love, you don't have the unconditional love behind that, then it's not going to mean much, because you're always going to see those people as they just want something from you. Whereas like his mother was more of a representation of, hey, I loved you this, like you didn't change at all. When you started flying, everybody else loved you differently, but I love you the same throughout the whole thing. So that message is cool, it's powerful, it's small, whatever. But the movie made me cry and it made me laugh. And I'm like, if you can do that in 1 hour and not take much of my time, I actually think it's like far more valuable than some of the other movies we've watched because of that. Like for that reason alone, I have to take runtime into it. You know, like,
Sure.
True. Of the animated movies we watched, it's on the low end for me.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I haven't thought about my rankings yet, but it's probably on the lower end for me too.
I just can't think of an animated movie. I'd put it near Peter Pan because I didn't hate either this one or Peter Pan, but I'm not in love with either.
I'd put it over Peter Pan. You
think so?
To be fair, yeah. Peter Pan was. I didn't.
Oh, you didn't like? Yeah, right. You just straight up disliked Peter Pan.
Straight up disliked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't disliked any of these animated movies, but I mean, as far as ones that I loved,
We also have a fan of Heffalumps and Woozles. Takes it 100%.
Yes, 100%. It's great, and it makes sense that he's tripping because he's like having a nightmare. So then the imagery actually makes sense in that one.
All right, so now we have talked about the original.
Talked about the original?
Some good things, some kind of
it's
like
aight.
things. Overall, I thought it was solid. You guys maybe thought it was a step down from solid, but now we get to talk about
It was fine.
the better version, right? Or
Movie
Oh, yeah.
sucks.
So, dude,
and the podcast.
Okay,
Movie sucks.
no, here I'm. I just I watched the live action, and I think I have just like a kind of a mild plain toast take. I just wanted everyone in that movie to die. So just kind of just to fall off a cliff and die and light on fire, and then I could laugh at their
man.
corpses.
It's really bad.
But just like a mild take. That movie was so infuriating.
can you give like a super fast synopsis so we can talk
let me
about
give
it?
you let me give you the biggest change they made. Here's the biggest change they made to the
Just
movie.
a real quick synopsis.
Here's the biggest. I'll give you a real quick synopsis. Here's for a movie that's literally twice as long. Here is the biggest change they made in the movie. The original Dumbo is about Dumbo, Timothy, and talking animals. The new Dumbo is about people.
Yeah,
Dumbo is not the main character of New Dumbo.
not even close.
Okay, so here's the setup. A guy comes back from a war. We're not told what war. He
I think
mentions.
I think it's World War One.
Yeah, I think so too. He mentions a battle that he was in. So I think it is World War One. I didn't look that up.
I think it was set. The setting was 1919. if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense
It's like
historically.
it's like just after World War One. So this guy comes back from the war. He lost his arm in the war. He comes back to the circus that he was a part of. He was a trick rider, and he comes back to his kids. He's got a daughter and a son. He reunites with them. Their mother probably died either during the war or before the war, but she's dead. Bummer.
Yeah.
And it's about him. So the guy who runs the circus is like, oh, you just take care of the elephants now. You can be our elephant
and
guy.
he's missing an arm.
And, yeah,
I don't know if
I mentioned that.
matters at all.
Let me
in the
get to
movie,
that. Let me get back to that because this is part of my frustration. Let me get through the whole synopsis and then we're going to get to that. So he comes back to the circus, ends up training the elephants. He comes back right when Mrs. Jumbo has her baby, Dumbo, who has big floppy ears. Greg, let me know if I skip any plot points that are important.
Oh, he will.
I got you. I'll just hit you with the air horn.
He missed that. So Dumbo's born, big floppy ears, and the kids are like, "Aw, he's cute." I'm not gonna mention any like character development stuff yet because I want to get to that.
Through the
Let me race through this.
so we can just trash
shoot.
it.
People are being horrible to Dumbo. There's one guy in particular that's like butting heads, and I can't remember his name. Sorry, but he's like butting heads with soldier guy.
Colin Farrell's character.
Okay, the only reason I remember the kids' names, they're Millie and Joe. And the reason I remember that is because at one point he calls Millie Joe like really quick, and I thought he said Billy Joel.
Yeah,
And I was like, what did he say?
Until you said it
Millie
right
and
there.
Joe. It's Billy Joe.
I thought it was
Billy Joel.
I thought it was Billy and Joe this whole time.
Yeah, it's
until you
Millie
corrected it
and
right
Joe, and I thought he was calling for Billy Joel, or I thought he had named his kids Billy and Joel, and so I had captions on, so I did get it's Millie and Joe, but so the dad is headbutting with this other guy who's just kind of an ass, and but the dad basically is like, I'm in charge, so you got to do what I say. He's like, okay, fine. So they're in the middle of a performance, and it goes really poorly. People start throwing stuff at Dumbo, and Mrs. Jumbo starts losing her stuff. Take this off. My headphones are slipping. I gotta find a workaround for this. Don't
Yeah.
worry, Greg. I'll find a workaround.
You see, it's not as easy as it looks.
I made it work for an hour, so I don't want to hear it. You gave up after 10 minutes, so you're weak.
Last hat standing.
Weak. But anyways, so Mrs. Jumbo starts losing her ish. The mean guy comes in and so the dad is calming down Mrs. Jumbo, like does the Velociraptor palm, calm, hand on the trunk, and then mean guy comes in and basically riles her back up again, and then is like hey, like literally like cackling villain goes and hides under the stage. Like, oh, what's he do now, Elephantina? And then Mrs. Jumbo like bumps into the tent pole, breaks the tent pole, and it falls on the dude.
And he dies.
And he dies. It's like the quickest.
100%, she just murdered a guy.
Yeah. So this is one thing I had to.
Horribly
This is one thing where I was kind of paying attention, but I kept having to go back because they kept saying things, and I was like, wait, did they actually establish that happened? And they're like, oh, she killed the guy. I was like, wait, who died? And I went back like, oh, the tent pole fell on him. So she accidentally killed him. It wasn't like she trampled him. Anyways, she gets locked up and sold. And then the kids are like comforting Dumbo. This is 40 minutes into the movie. Yeah. The kids are comforting Dumbo, and he's in midst of a bunch of feathers. He sneezes and he starts to fly. And they're like, wait, how did you do that? And the boy's like, it's the feathers. Don't know how you figured that out. But they figure out, oh, Dumbo can fly. I'm going to come back. There's a lot of stuff I need to come back to because this movie is just one of the most infuriating movies I've watched. So then they're like, oh, Dumbo, you're in this clown thing, just fly, and it'll be great. And so he does. And they're like, oh, this flying elephant. And so this guy who's clearly supposed to be P.T. Barnum, but he looks like Will Ferrell from Zoolander. He looks like Mugatu.
I mean, it's what's his name, right?
It's supposed to be P.T. Barnum.
It's Michael Keaton.
Is it Michael Keaton?
Who is a phenomenal actor.
I couldn't figure out who it was supposed to be.
I don't know why
his name is V.A. Vandermeer. Yeah.
I don't know why he decided to do this.
I have my top hat back on. His name is V.A. Vandermeer.
And Colin Farrell. Yeah. That's two like really elite actors.
Wait, Colin Farrell was the dad.
Yeah. He's a great actor, and poor guy.
Great actors can be in bad movies. So
filmography.
So V.A. Vandermeer comes in. V.A. Vandermeer comes in, and he's like, oh, I heard you got a flying elephant. Well, Sonny, listen here. He doesn't talk like that.
Does not talk like that.
He does not talk like that. He says, now listen here, Sonny. Now I have a deal for you. And basically it gets the old guy who looks like Danny DeVito but isn't Danny DeVito, right? He looks like Danny DeVito in Always Sunny. Is it Danny DeVito? Yeah. Okay, I wasn't crazy. I was like, he looks exactly like Danny DeVito in Always Sunny. So it is Danny DeVito. He gets Danny DeVito to basically sell to basically join his circus to Van Devier's giant he's got this giant complex called Unemployed in Dreamland. He goes to Dreamland, and so they go there and you find out very quickly that Vandermeer is only interested in Dumbo. And so he's like, all right, we're gonna get Dumbo to fly with this. I've got this circus performer who he's really creepy to. Colette. I remember her name.
They weren't dating.
So no. But he was perving on her. Vanderveer was perving on her the whole time.
He waltzes out with her as if they're like this together.
An item?
But pretty quickly
you get the impression that he's not.
Pretty quickly you get Colin Farrell asking her. She's like, "Oh, so you're not with him?" And she's like, "No, he's just kind of walking me out there like I'm his queen or whatever." That's just like a part of his whole spiel.
Yeah, but she's like acrobatics. The swinging from the trapeze artist. That's what it is. And I remember her name, Colette, because it's really close to. There's an episode of Futurama where Bender changes his gender so he can participate in the Olympics because he can't. He's like, I can't compete with the male robots, but I can compete with the female robots. So he changed his name to Coilette from Robonia. This is an episode that actually happens, and it is hysterical.
It's a little close to reality.
It's a little like, yeah. Nowadays, you're like, wait a minute, this is actually happening, but it's very funny. But I remember her name is Colette because I was like, oh, it's Coilette, it's Bender. And so the whole idea is that she will ride on Dumbo, and so they get up for their first act. And they've removed the safety nets. And so there's like kind of the side thing going on where Vandermeer has this banker he's JP Morgan. He's supposed to be JP Morgan. They give him some other name, but he's JP Morgan. And he's like, the implication, I don't remember them actually going into detail on this, but the implication is that Vandermeer is broke and that JP Morgan is willing to fund him if he can prove that he has a good show. Now, I'll get to why that made no damn sense in just a second. But so he's trying to impress this banker guy. JP Morgan Chase, hello there. I'm going to fund your event. Yes, everyone in the 40s talked exactly the same and wore top hats. The men, the women, everyone wore top hats and talked like this. Hello there.
Just to clarify, that's not how they were depicted in the movie. This is just Nathanael saying things.
That's because it wasn't a realistic movie. If it was realistic, everyone. It was like actually the 1920s. Everyone would talk like this, except for the people in the Dust Bowl. They're all poor. I'm not poor.
The accents were
Can't you see my top hat? I'm not poor. Yeah, there were no accents.
Michael Keaton tried to do an accent, and I feel like it was horrific.
It was abysmal. No, but the worst was Colette's French accent, and every now and then she would just be like, "Oh, hi, I'm Colette," and like, well, you're not even trying. Anyway,
everyone gave up.
Like it was a bad French accent, but you couldn't even stick with that.
Yeah.
Anyways. So they take away the safety nets. Colette freaks out, and Dumbo starts to slip off the platform. So she falls and manages to catch herself. Okay, here's something that happens in a lot of movies that really frustrates me. Have you ever, because I've done this, have you ever grabbed the rope and slid down a rope with your bare hands?
Yeah.
It burns your skin off. Mm-hmm. And this happens all the time. She just grabs this big ass, and you can see it's like this really knotty, like rough rope, and she just goes, no, I'm fine. Like 3 stories, she slides down this rope very quickly, and her hands are fine, which is nonsense. Okay, you can't do that. Like I had blisters on my hands for a week going 10 feet on a rope.
She's just built different, though.
Okay,
She's a trapeze artist.
You're right. I
She's
can't deny
probably
she could be built different.
she's
She probably just
calloused
she has like iron calluses on her hands. She could probably
Yeah.
just like grab hot coals.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Anyways, so she slides down, and Dumbo falls and does manage to fly, but then he flies. But so it turns out that Mrs. Jumbo was sold and was bought by sheer coincidence, was bought by Vandermeer and is in this Nightmare Island thing where he has all these animals dressed up as horrifying monstrosities, and she's in Nightmare Island making trumpeting noises. Dumbo hears this and flies out to meet her, and the banker, for some reason, is like, well, he flew, but he didn't quite do exactly what you wanted him to do. So I'm not going to give you any money. It's like, you need to control your elephant.
I saw an elephant fly.
This is
but
the
it's
thing.
not
This is one of
enough.
the things that boggles my mind about this movie. There's an elephant flying, and everyone's just like, "Huh, that elephant flew."
That's
Hello.
They're all like,
Hello.
They're like,
an elephant is flying.
they're like, we saw the original Dumbo. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
we've
right.
seen
They're
this
like,
before.
I mean, it's all right. Anyways, so basically, Vandermeer's like, okay, Dumbo, you got to do it again. Sends Mrs. Jumbo to get killed to this one guy, the other evil guy, Perkins or Puggins or whatever the heck his name was, Snake Man. And so he has these boots on that are clearly made of some sort of leather. And Dad asks him, Colin Farrell's like, those snake skin? And
He
he's like,
says shark skin.
he said snake skin. I had captions on.
Okay.
But it could have been shark skin. It could have been just regular leather. It could have been anything. But he's like, no, it's elephant skin. Ha ha ha! I'm evil. Like literally looks at him and is like, hey, elephant trainer, you better hope I don't kill your elephants and make boots out of them. The characterization in this movie was just completely asinine. Anyways, he sends Mr. Jumbo off to get killed, and then he fires all of the circus people that came in with Danny DeVito. And so they find out because Mr. Vandermeer's assistant is basically like, this is not right. And so he goes to them and he's like, just so you know, I had to get this off my conscience. They're going to kill Mrs. Jumbo. And so they basically stage a heist. And so all the old circus performers, all of Danny DeVito's circus performers, and Dumbo stage a heist. They break out Mrs. Jumbo. They destroy all of Dreamland, and it burns to the ground, which we'll come back to. And then Dumbo and Mrs. Jumbo fly off to India, end up in India, where the elephants are somehow not freaked out over the sight of an elephant flying around. And then everybody else, they redo the circus. And so now they have the Danny DeVito circus is back on, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Did I miss any major plot points?
That made me
No,
sad again.
that's
Okay.
good. So Liam, tell me about, like, you watched it. You seem like you loved it.
Yeah,
Like,
you really enjoyed
One
it.
word. I got one word.
I'm listening.
Okay.
Soulless.
Absolutely. 100%.
Soulless.
100%.
I will say I went into it, and maybe I differ from you guys in this take. The potential of human involvement in the story of Dumbo didn't necessarily turn me off. I thought there could be something there to flesh out the story a little bit more. Again, if Dumbo was the main character, which you're right, he was not. So that part immediately flew out the window. All of the characters had almost no development. There was no arc to any of them. They were soulless. They were just they're just blank people. Michael Keaton was especially disappointing, considering how much I like Michael Keaton as an actor. He was just an evil person with no sort of arc.
No, they did give him an arc. He was like, you got to learn to live on your own. When my daddy left me, and that's it. That's literally the characterization you get for him being evil, is that his daddy left him and he had to learn to do stuff on his own. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
it was pathetic. It gave me like Peter Pan live action vibes, and how much it tested my commitment to this podcast.
I was telling Liam, I watched half of it while I was exercising. I was just sitting on an exercise bike watching it, and I'm slamming my head into the back of the exercise chair like, please God, make it stop. It's so bad. I hate this movie. There's someone else in the exercise room, but he had headphones in and he was singing, and I was just like quietly, like, before he came in, I'm just like sitting in this empty studio this empty workout space, just swearing, saying this movie's so stupid, just spewing profanities, and then he walks in and now I'm quiet like, but I'm sure he saw me like whacking my head against
Hot
the back of the
take,
chair,
I
like,
typically try to avoid bad movies, and this podcast has forced them down my throat. And I love doing it, but holy cow, was this an abomination.
I do think it is important to watch bad movies to understand.
Sure.
It helps you understand, okay, what makes a good movie good, what makes a bad movie bad. Sometimes there are things you're like, I can't put my finger on it. But, as you watch more movies, you get, okay, I like it when this happens. I don't like it when this happens. I like when this happens. And context is obviously important. But, man, sometimes watching a movie is just pain.
Yeah.
It's just pain.
I think my favorite character actually was Danny DeVito's character. He was probably the only one that even, remotely got a reaction out of me. Tim Burton, disappointment, man.
I did not realize it was a Tim Burton movie until the credits started rolling. It was like, right, Tim Burton? I was like, where was he?
It's wild. And I'm assuming that's why he got so many legit actors to sign on to it. I'm sure that played a part.
Probably. Also, that Disney money.
Sure. Even J.P. Morgan, Alan Alda, he's a great actor. He's in some really good movies. Fargo, I think he might have got nominated for an Oscar.
Chat's
for Fargo.
actually saying sometimes bad movies can be enjoyable.
That was not that
there's definitely
use case.
There's definitely a so bad it's good line where it's like, this is so absurd and silly that I'm laughing at it.
Yeah.
This was not that.
No, it was soulless. That's the word I kept coming back to.
I think Solus is a solid.
Yeah,
is a solid
I think it's a good way to do it, because bad movies that had good intentions that ended up bad are generally watchable. Movies that were only produced because Disney wanted to cut a check milking this hour-long cartoon, and clearly no one is invested in it, and no one tried. There's just no energy in anything. It's just all bad. So, Greg, do you want to give your takes
I'm
going to unload on this movie.
The last thing I will say is I want to reiterate that the potential of this was actually sort of appealing to me going into the movie. The human involvement, like human instead of, maybe that speaks more to my lack of for Timothy Mouse. Get that man out of the movie. Replace him with humans.
I mean, all Timothy Mouse got replaced by all the good characters in the movie.
Because he was a good
I was
character.
like,
this man is anti-mouse. See, I love mice because of Reaper Cheap, so I have a soft spot for mice.
So that disappointed me maybe even more. Like, I went into it, I was like, oh, it's going to be pretty different. It's not going to be exactly what the original was, and I wasn't super high on the original, so I was like, we'll see where this goes. And yeah, it was significantly worse than the original.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like if you're tasked with remaking Dumbo, you're left with an hour-long movie that there's very little dialogue, and pretty much it's the themes we talked about, right? It's a theme about a kind of not appealing looking child being loved unconditionally by the mother.
He's pretty cute, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the original did a good job to be like, listen, as a viewer, we all know Dumbo's adorable. I mean, he might be the cutest animated Disney thing. I mean, he is absolutely adorable.
Magic carpet?
Hot take?
No, I honestly, after watching this movie, and I'm not somebody that like grew up on Dumbo or anything, I think Dumbo might be one of the cutest animated things, period. I mean, people are like, oh, Baby Yoda's adorable. How did
Not
Dumbo
to out myself for future movies, but Hey Marion and Robin Hood.
What about Stitch?
Stitch is pretty cute.
No, I'm telling you, I think that Dumbo is so much sweeter than all those things. But anyways, my point being that I think the movie was smart to have it based off of like the elephants are the ones that are like, this isn't not how elephants look. As a human, because we're human beings and we look at animals and we're either like, hey, you're cute or you're gross. We're very shallow when it comes to animals, and that's totally okay somehow. But the animals themselves are like, oh, you're an abomination. Look how big your ears are, and like that, you can kind of like, you can get behind that as a viewer. You can say, "Oh no, he's cute. Stop that!" Like to the other animals that are making fun of him. And you do get some human interaction of saying that like he looks kind of weird or whatever. But the problem is that you take all of that out in the live action, where he's only being talked to by other people. Like, people are the ones that are like, oh, you're gross. And you're like, well, this is hard to get behind, because who would think that he's gross? He's adorable. Like, that is the sweetest looking little elephant you've ever seen. And I don't really buy that people would be like, oh, You freak.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like, I can
Well,
get behind that
the thing
elephants
is-
might think that he's abnormal.
Yeah, the thing is, in the original, the elephants are just saying he looks ridiculous, right? They're not like, I mean, they are like he's a freak, but not in like a he's hideous way, but in like a he looks ridiculous.
Right. But I mean,
They're just like he looks very silly.
and I'm not saying that like the original animated one had people also joining in that. It's true.
Right.
It's just that they leaned more heavily on the animals being the
Right,
protagonist.
right.
Like the big elephants were clearly the baddies. Even the director of the whole circus, you don't even really get his thoughts on things. He's like, okay, yeah, Dumbo can be the main star of things. He doesn't think about the fact that he's got big ears or anything. Even after he destroys everything, he's just like, well, I don't know what to use him for because his ears are too big to be useful. So let's just use him as a clown or something. And oh man, the live action one, it's like, but if you're left with that as the theme, why not do this, right? And this is my solution to the Dumbo problem. Have one of the trainers of the elephants be a kid who's awkward looking. He's got buck teeth, whatever, but he's got freckles. Or I don't know.
It be Colin Farrell with his makeup from the Batman.
So it's a kid who gets made fun of a lot and who you can see as an adult and be like, oh, this poor kid keeps like, so as a viewer, you can start to sympathize and have a heart for the kid like you did for Dumbo in the original. And he's caring for the elephants, and then the big elephant has the baby. It's Dumbo. Dumbo gets made fun of by the other animals, and you depict that in whatever way you can. You know, that maybe if you don't want to have them talking, which is an interesting decision, but you don't have them talking. They're just kind of rustling with Dumbo, and they're making fun of him, and he can relate now to Dumbo as being an outcast. And then when Mom gets taken away, he kind of plays the Timothy Mouse character, and now you're experiencing the movie more so through Kid and less reliant on an animal that not only doesn't emote because you're trying to make it look real, but
I will say,
not.
they did a good job of making Dumbo still look cute in the live action. Like it was a little CG, but I felt more than anything in The Lion King. I actually felt some emotion. Like it looked sad,
more so,
and looked happy,
more
way
so than
more than
Lion King
anything,
or Little Mermaid,
or
like animals.
So
I would
I
agree
will
with that.
say,
Yeah.
at least specifically just for Dumbo, I didn't hate the CGI. It was clearly CGI, but I didn't hate it.
I mean, but the problem was that, and you said it earlier, the movie's not about him. Like,
Yep.
so it doesn't even matter.
Yep,
That
it
they
doesn't
did
even
good
matter.
job
It's a moot point.
Yeah, and my whole point was if you're going to make it not about him, have a character that can pretty much play his whole story as a human,
Yep.
and just have them play it
Like a
together.
parallel.
Yes,
like that.
and have him
And
also experience some kind of unconditional love, even if you want to make it silly and it coming from Dumbo or from Dumbo's mom, or he can see that exists somewhere. That gives him hopes, and then he's reunited with his parents who give him that same love, and maybe he's got a hidden talent as well, right? Like you can find something like that, as opposed to the movie that we're left with, which is, if I were to draw a theme, it would be what animal conservationists like. It's like at the end they're like, by the way, we don't lock up any animals. Like,
Right,
we just
yeah,
wanna
that
make
was-
it,
it was like,
make it
all the
known
animals
that
are out of captivity,
All of the
hooray.
animals are out of captivity, and I'm like, is that
I
the
guess
theme
that's
of your
okay.
movie? Like, because we obviously didn't get. What character
other
development
than Mrs.
from
Jumbo
Dumbo.
and arguably the other animals in Nightmare Island, you don't get any of that in the movie. And so I'm going to hold my tongue until it's my turn because I'm just going to go off.
Okay.
So finish.
So, yeah, my overall thoughts is that, yes, this is difficult to try to make. I knew it was going to be very far from the original because the original is an hour-long movie about an elephant that doesn't talk. And you're like, okay, you roll your eyes at it because you're like, well, then why? Like, that's the obvious question is why would you try to remake this movie? And the answer is cash. Because they're like, oh, like we can make some kind of money off of
Filthy
music.
Luca.
And this is the exact depiction of, like, this is the exact example of we're going to use a character to try to make a whole new story on, and the story is going to be so far removed from what the original story was that it's unrecognizable. Like, Dumbo could have been a lion, and this could have had no relation to Dumbo.
It's a lion!
And it could have just been called something completely different because the movie is about kids, and it's something I get really annoyed at is when you introduce a kid and they're acting like kids never act. Like you instantly, the girl is like, I want to be recognized for my mind and not. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, what
let me get to
11-year-old
I've got
is
words on
strolling
that.
into your living room and is like, hi, I'd like to be appreciated for more than just what I look like. And I'm like, all right, 11-year-old, I'm gonna slap.
Father, I would like to go to the stock market to exchange stonks.
Yeah.
Because I am 11 and I therefore should be treated as an adult. What oh?
Yes. It was exactly
I
how...
am a pronounced scientist. We must do research.
This was like, so they introduced the daughter, and she's like that. Son is like normal son. He's like throwing things.
And does literally nothing.
I forgot
in
the
the
son
movie.
was even in the movie,
He's,
honestly.
he's one of the most
utterly
useless characters.
useless.
He's just a walnut. He does
Joe.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yep, Joe. Useless Joe. Sleepy Joe,
Useless
they call
Joe
him.
Jackson.
Sleepy Joe, doing nothing in the movie.
Sleep.
corn pop.
There it
Corn
is.
pop.
There it is. There it is.
Silence.
Good callback. I was trying to like devolve into him for a second. It took me too long.
All you have to do is
Come
go.
on, man. But anyways, so
That's my Biden impression.
Sleepy Joe at it again, ruining my
Sleepy
Dumbo
Joe.
movie. It was supposed to be about the elephant, folks. He was the best elephant. Nobody flew better than him.
Everybody knows this.
Everybody knows this.
everyone knows. Ask him; they'll tell you. He's
They'll
the
tell
greatest
you.
elephant they've ever seen.
Everybody says this.
Anyways, so you're left with a movie that is like, it's very hard to understand why anything's happened or what conclusion you're trying to get to, other than like, we need to free these animals. And that's honestly what I got. I was like, I don't know what else you're making. It was not necessarily offensive to the original because I knew it couldn't be the original. Like I was like, well, it's not even trying
it still
to.
had
It's just a complete.
the major plot points of the original.
Well,
basically.
not really.
Minus the end. Like the themes, like the story beats are still functionally the same, but the themes aren't there because the animals aren't talking.
I don't know even about that because Timothy Mouth doesn't exist, and
Right.
you basically get. Oh, the worst part is you get Baby Mine played by, I'm just going to say it, an extremely overweight wannabe mermaid who's sitting who's holding a ukulele, and she is playing it off to the side, not even looking at Dumbo. I don't know for the life of me what she's looking off into the distance. Behind, she's playing this song like Baby Mine, dry your eyes, and behind her is Dumbo making his way to the cage, and you get a super mild version of an interaction of what was a beautiful moment in Disney. You get that, and I'm like, thank you for having
an atrocimacy.
Thank you for having the bearded lady play me a song that just
man.
completely ruined.
Also,
So that was-
talk about female empowerment. She just like jujitsu'd two guards. Like her pushing one into the water, fine, but then she gets out of the water and then just like slams them back into the water. And you're like, now hold on.
None of this was a movie made for kids that had no soul. It's completely
That's
that's
a
a
great.
really
Soulless.
really great. Yeah, that is actually awesome.
Yeah.
So
You
had
ready
no
for me to
soul.
tear this movie apart?
All right.
Here we
let's
go.
get it.
Everyone, buckle in.
Okay.
Can I actually? No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was
No,
gonna say, did you guys catch the one part that did make me laugh, but not for the right reasons? Was when in the circus when the announcer or whatever was like, "Let's get ready to Dumbo."
Yeah. I was like, is that a WWE reference?
Let's get ready
So
to
stupid.
He's gonna be
rumble.
like, wait a minute.
He said,
And then, of
"Let's
course, he
get-
ruined it by saying, you've seen a housefly.
Let's
You've even seen that. But now, have you ever seen an elephant like you? Okay, yeah, yes, he's the jive crow now.
Oh
Come
my
on.
goodness!
All
Let's
right.
get ready to Dumbo.
That movie was like the perfect example of all setup and no payoff. Bruh. Let's think about the things that are established in the movie that end up not mattering a single. I really want to use a lot of swear words, but I'm going to try to constrain myself from that.
We're a PG podcast.
PG-13. No, you can say shit in PG movies, so we're PG.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with the dad, Colin Farrell, war veteran, amputee, widower. All of these things could constitute a great character.
Of course.
Which of those things actually matters to the plot?
None of them.
None of them. The only one that's even vaguely touched on is the fact that he and his kids miss his mom.
Right.
Whoop-de-frickin-do. Your wife died. I miss her. I'm shocked. In fact, it would be more shocking if he was like, actually, I'm not really that torn up about it. And you'd be like, whoa, damn, that's not good character development, but it's character development, all right. His arm missing literally does not play a single role in the entire film. The one time where it might, he's like climbing the wall. His job, why they gave him this job, no one will ever know. His job is to like scale the side of the massive tent. And he's doing it with one arm. And he slips once.
That's the greatest.
But it's not like he slips and he's like, tries to grab it with his thumb. No, his foot slips and then he's fine. And
the
he
greatest-
just like doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop.
the greatest
and
part of
then-
their plan is that they're like, hey, look, we need one guy out of all of us hundreds of people ready to save Dumbo. You got to climb the side of this tent and then cut a hole. And they're like, we should send the one-armed guy.
Everyone's like, yeah, great idea.
That's the real criminal.
Yeah.
Is
Whose
whoever,
idea?
whoever was like, yeah, you
And
go.
To
You
go back
climb
to what
that
you
thing.
said about, hey, give a human a parallel Dumbo story. He could have had that. He could be like, hey, Dumbo, we're both deformed, but you know what? We can still be strong people, or overcome obstacles.
Not gonna lie, that's exactly
Despite that.
That's what I thought the movie. Like the first time
But,
he
like-
comes in right away.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is exactly
as soon
what's
as they
going to
introduced
happen.
him, I was like, "Oh, interesting." And he talks once about the war, and he makes a comment to the guy who gets killed by Mama Jumbo about, "Oh, you were too cowardly to not to go to the war." But it's like, okay, you could have had him had PTSD. You could have had him have combat flashbacks or struggle to readjust to society or anything about him being an amputee. Because he's like, oh, look, I can still do all my tricks. So it literally doesn't matter that he's an amputee.
And
it makes zero impact on the entire plot. You had so much you could have done there, and it means nothing.
It almost seemed like they might have had an initial idea to use it and then scrapped it. Because the first interaction he has with his kids are looking at his
Stump arm.
So I'm like, oh, this has to come into play at some point.
I mean,
that was pretty much it.
There is a point early on when he's getting back and he's like, hey, we can still do the act. And then he's like, no, you can't. You've only got one arm. So
Yeah, but it's done in passing, and then
nothing
everyone
to
just
his
moves on.
character.
And then
Yeah.
everyone just moves on.
I swear they had a different plot and they scrapped it.
It definitely feels like there were rewrites or stuff was left on the cutting room floor. Okay, the daughter. He comes back and she's like, Papa, I want to be a scientist. Okay, fine. It's we need more women in STEM, Papa. Which, okay, it's 1919. Okay, just to start with, right? It's not the 20th century. So what is her exposure to science? What does she mean by that? And she has like these little science kits where she's doing experiments. Okay, cool. I don't know if they were inventing those. I don't know if they were selling those sorts of things back then. They might have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't look it up. But fine. At the end of the movie, at the very end, there's like this part in Dreamland where it's like wonders of the future. And they go to the wonders of the future, and she's sitting in front of the Marie Curie exhibit. And she's like, this is what inspired me. It's like, you could have started with that. Like, have Pop come in on her reading a book about Marie Curie and be like, I want to be like her, right? It makes sense for her to want to be a scientist if you show that there's a clear role model who is a real person, who was incredibly impactful. Nerie Curie, real person, real scientist, really a woman, right? Great role model.
Well,
great instant.
Well, you're assuming.
Pierre never said anything otherwise, so we're going to assume that everything was above board, right? But a real person who did really important research. Right? An actual, real, physical scientist, someone who you could very easily say, this was her role model. She got inspired by Marie Curie. Great. That makes perfect sense. They did that at the end of the movie. And then her being the scientist, and Vandermeer refers to her as the scientist as well once, literally does not impact the entire movie. There's one point where they learn Dumbo can fly, and not her, but the brother's like, it's the feathers. Okay, whatever. And then she's like, we'll have to do some testing. And then it just cuts to the night of we have a week before the show. We'll have to do some testing and experimentation. Then it just cuts to the show. So do they do testing and experimentation? Does she even know what that means? It's unclear because they didn't show us anything. They just cut to the show, and she like climbs up the ladder, gives him a feather, and then he can fly. And it's like,
and even like I feel like there was potential to use that to like play into the escape, the heist.
Right. It did.
Like that's pretty
not
clear.
matter.
Like you could tie that in to be she did something scientific to help.
Yeah,
Dumbo
it would be
escape or
very
whatever.
easy to be like, oh, she actually completed something, which, in my opinion, still would be silly considering.
Yeah, it's silly.
I don't
Okay, how
think
did she
that
have the knowledge to do
Yeah.
X, Y, Z? Now, if you show her here's 100 failed inventions that she's been working on. She's been tinkering. She's been learning how to do mechanical things. Or maybe say like the circus guys are letting her play with the electronics, right? There's a lot of really easy things you could do to show us that she's actually been developing her skills as a scientist, whatever that means, right? They do none of that. And then, of course, it doesn't matter because she doesn't do anything science related. She does literally nothing. Literally nothing. Okay.
So wait, hold on. Chat makes a decent little point here. Being an amputee doesn't necessarily have to be a plot point. It could just be like the representation of a disabled person in the movie.
It could be, but you would think that it would impact his ability to do something.
Right.
Right? Because otherwise the message is that, hey, being an amputee doesn't affect your life at all, which I don't think is the actual message.
Well, and I also think that like they didn't just start him as an amputee. Like it's to be assumed based on the kid's
that
reaction
he lost the arm in the war.
Just recently
Sure.
lost the arm,
and
so
that's fine. But I just feel like they could have done more than that. It could have led to some moments of vulnerability for him.
Yeah, I
and
agree
it
with
just didn't. It could have led to some really good character growth. Like he's no longer able to do the things he used to do because he lost his arm. But although there's that one line where they say that, he never has any trouble doing anything because of his lost arm.
I mean, like,
So
how powerful would it have been for him to have this struggle with his identity now that he can't ride,
Right.
and then he looks at Dumbo not being able to walk and trip on his ears, and it builds some kind of sympathy, and this is why this character has
Right.
sympathy, because as a viewer, you're not really sure why this family is like, hey, we'll literally risk our lives to save this elephant that we met a few days ago,
Right.
considering our family's falling apart. All of a sudden, we're just going to risk everything for this elephant,
Right,
And
but-
everybody else is like, yeah, that's kind of a weird
But,
looking
like, the
elephant.
very
You don't know why,
but, like, the
that would've
very
been
first
low-hang-
thing-
that seems like an easy way to do it.
Exactly. The very first thing we see him doing is he's practicing his rope tricks. He's like, oh, I can still do everything I used to do because I guess he didn't lose his dominant arm. So it's like,
He's literally.
I guess you don't need to have it be like his. I'm not saying make it like his only character point, but it's like he wasn't born with only one arm.
Right.
He lost his arm in the war. So presumably that's going to impact his life moving forward, but we don't actually see that impact his life moving forward. Right? So you're telling me you're telling me something, but you're not actually showing me what it means. It's like we were talking about this. I think we were talking about this earlier when you know there's that character that comes in and it's just a jerk to everyone, and then someone's like, "Oh, I like them," and like, "Oh, so we're supposed to like them." And they're like, "You're the most amazing person I know. You're beautiful and this and that and smart and brave and like okay, but they haven't done anything to indicate that. It's like okay, oh, I lost an arm and it's really hurting me. Okay, but when we watch your actions, it doesn't seem to. It isn't even like. You see, like, you know, he's covering up the pain, right? Like, oh, it really is impacting him, but he's just not letting it. He's being really stoic so his kids don't see him cry or something like that.
Yeah.
That could have been interesting, too. There's just so many interesting things that could have happened that they set up with either that, even if he wasn't an amputee, him being a World War I veteran, which probably would leave you with some serious trauma that could be really interesting to explore, especially alongside the trauma of being separated from your mother, like Dumbo. Or the fact that their mom is dead, or the fact that he presumably hasn't seen them in 4 or 5 years because he's been at the war. None of that seems to matter. The son, literally nothing. He's just not a character. He does not. He's there.
Joe.
He has like
Sleepy Joe.
freaking Sleepy
Sleepy
Joe.
Joe.
He doesn't impact the story at all. Like anything he did could have just been done by the daughter, and they didn't need to have him there.
Could have totally erased him from the movie.
Could have erased him from the movie and given all his lines to the girl, and it would not have changed a thing. So you're gonna move on from there.
This might be a Liam thing, but like, is the parallel that they were trying to get at was his family was going to go above and beyond for the elephant who's missing his mother because they lost their mother.
So they do kind of make that tie right at the end. The implication for the original is that, oh, he's a cute elephant and they don't want to abandon him, which is perfectly reasonable human reaction to a cute elephant, right?
Right.
At the very, very end, okay. So let me real quick touch on Dad real quick. Okay, so he's showing that he can still do all the rope tricks and he can still ride horses, and that does come into play at the end when they're in the burning tent. The kids are in the burning tent being attacked by Hans or whatever the hell his name was. It's like Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber. Vandermeer?
It's Jakob.
You know what? I was
wasn't
about to say it was Jakob.
What is his name?
Jakob. His name was Jakob.
Jakob, I mean.
Jakob Maas.
Jakob
He
Maas.
comes in and he's like menacing the kids. Dad rides in on a horse, lassos him, ties the lasso to the horse, jumps off the horse, and the horse carries the bad guy safely out of the burning building. And then he's like, "All right, kids, we're trapped in a burning building. Like, I'm sorry, you absolute donut. Let go of the lasso. You rope the guy, pick your kids up, put him on the horse, and ride away." Like, that would have been the impact. Is he only has one arm? He can only grab one kid. Who does he save? But like, he literally lets the horse drag the bad guy to safety while he's sitting there like an ass, and Dumbo has to come save him. Like, dude, my guy, just try. I was dumbfounded. I was like, that. What? The horse just left. Your horse just left, and it was fine. Just take the horse out. Oh my god!
And obviously, he would not have. If he could only save one, he would not have saved Joe.
No one would have saved
He
Joe. He would
probably
have been
doesn't
like,
even-
"Sorry, Joe, have you done anything?"
Joe was
No,
probably a
I was my
mistake.
daughter.
Joe was a mistake.
He was really
and,
hoping. He was really hoping.
Was Joe actually real, or was Joe just hallucinated by the daughter? Like, let's be honest.
maybe the daughter was on absinthe.
Yeah,
the
Millie
entire
just
time, and she thought
hallucinated
Joe
Joe.
was a brother.
Oh, how about that low shot at Pink Elephants on Parade in the middle of the movie where there are like balloon performers?
Okay.
And they
let me come back to that. So let me go back to
Okay,
that because this is also that also comes into my setup and no payoff. Okay, so Vandermeer, right? Mugatu. I'm just going to call him Mugatu because he just gives me huge Mugatu vibes.
Yeah.
He's just Mugatu. And I was training Mugatu because I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because some of these things. So this is a movie I absolutely despised watching it. I was painful, and I had to go back and check things because I wasn't sure if the movie was so stupid as to forget that they had done something or they did something and didn't set it up properly. So I had to go back and scan through the movie again, which was extra painful. Because this is a bad movie, guys. I don't know if I've intimated to you that I hate everyone and I wish they had all died. It was if it had turned out they were all in hell, I wouldn't have been surprised. And I would have been like, yeah, probably should have been the ninth circle. Seventh circle is too nice for these guys.
It made me brain dead.
Yeah.
Maybe brain dead. Did you guys catch maybe this is just, I was just so brain dead by the end that I was just picking up on the wrong things, but there was an actor in the circuit tower that was interacting with Keaton. That was it might have been the worst acting performance.
Oh, yeah. The guy who looked like Hitler without the mustache. Am I crazy?
Yeah.
He literally looked like Hitler with no mustache.
I was also... I was confused. I was like, is he trying to be a certain way?
I know.
Was there something that he was doing that I missed?
I laughed twice during the movie, and it was that guy and the Let's Get Ready to Dumbo.
Yeah.
That was the only times I felt emotional.
Okay, so let's talk about the circus performers and Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito, his character arc actually makes sense.
Yeah, it's not really
deep,
thought it was fine.
But it's kind of flat, but it makes sense. He's got a struggling circus. He sees an opportunity for growth. He accepts it, finds out that the guy is bad,
gets laid off.
Yeah, and ends up, basically backing his troop back up.
Yeah.
Okay? Pretty minor, but understandable. Right? The rest of the troop actors, they're introduced in the first scene, and then they do absolutely nothing until the heist at the end where all their superpowers come into play.
Yeah.
I didn't remember a single... When they're doing the Dumbo scene, when Dumbo's doing his first act, and they're all like, it kept cutting to the circus members, and other than
I just remember the strongman. Yeah, that was the only
person I recognized. It kept cutting. I was like, who are these random audience members, and why do I care? And then later I was like, oh, they were Danny DeVito's crew because they're so forgettable. I did not recognize them because they do nothing. Their skill is established right early on in the movie and then does not matter for 2 hours. And then at the very end during the heist, they actually do things again. That's it. Mugatu, which I guess was Michael Keaton, but he really looked like Will Ferrell. I'm bad at faces, so guilty as charged. He looked like Will Ferrell from Zoolander.
It was very clearly.
Was it? Yeah.
I was looking. I was like, I know it's not Will Ferrell, but he just looks like Will Ferrell.
I'm going to go ahead and say that he didn't even have makeup on.
You're
it
also
was just straight up Michael.
You also didn't know that was Danny DeVito when Danny DeVito is one of the most recognizable.
I was like, this really looks like Danny DeVito, but I'm not sure. So I am admittedly very bad at identifying actors.
Sure.
Clearly,
I freely admit I am extremely bad at that. As my brother Ethan says, my facial recognition software was installed on opposite
You're
day.
face blind. A fun little side note. Tim Burton has another movie where Danny DeVito plays a circus leader.
I'm not surprised. He likes to typecast people.
Isn't that interesting? Big Fish is the name of the movie for anybody out there.
Real Big Fish.
Danny DeVito is like the same guy in that movie.
Danny DeVito is like the same guy in most of the movies, except when he's the Penguin, which was also Burton.
That's right.
He loves
and Keaton.
And Keaton.
And Michael Keaton.
Yeah, so
there you go.
That's the Dumbo Batman connection.
Hey, do you guys want to make a movie that's just like Batman?
Just like Batman, except for Danny DeVito's on the good guy's side and
Dumbo.
Batman's on the bad guy's side.
I mean, I bet you Keaton and DeVito owed him one or something. He's like, listen, guys.
He's like, I know the skeletons in your closet.
He's like, this movie's gonna be dog shit, but just.
But look at all these zeros on this check from Disney.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough, right?
So Mugatu Vandermeer. So he ostensibly, and again, they don't really establish this super well, but his dreamland is in trouble, and he's trying to woo J.P. Morgan, this banker who's like, if we put men on they can put a man on the moon. when he's like, when we put a man on the moon, I'm gonna be the. We'll put a man on the moon, and I'm going to be the one finances. I'll tell you what, boy. I'm J.P. Morgan.
It actually it's more entertaining if you just mute the movie and then picture everybody talking
like everyone talking like this. Their top hats are just constantly bobbing up and down as they talk.
You'll get way more enjoyment.
Now listen here, boy.
That's what I was trying to warn the audience, and I'm like,
how you doing, boy?
None of you've seen
Name's
this.
J.P. Morgan.
It's actually
I'm one of the big shots around here.
It's actually not like
I'm looking for a good show.
They're like, is there another Dumbo live action?
None of this actually happens.
Hire me, Disney. I will do all your voice acting for significantly less than they paying you. You still got to pay me. but I work. I promise you, I'm cheaper than Tim Burton or Michael Keaton. Promise you. You will. I know you've lost billions of dollars. If you just hire me, you'll lose significantly less money.
You'll lose. Yeah.
You'll lose
You'll lose
thousands of dollars instead of
$999 million.
billions. Yeah. So his whole thing is he has to get this. He needs a showstopper. He needs a showstopper to convince J.P. Morgan to give him money.
A climax, if you will.
Yes, but here's the problem. And this is the same thing I had problem with like Jurassic World, where they're like, oh, people are bored of dinosaurs. Bitch, what? Who people go to normal zoos? People pay money to go see a regular ass panda, and you're telling me they're not paying to see a stegosaurus? You're lying to me. You are lying to my face. This doesn't match with reality. If dinosaurs really existed, people would never get sick of seeing them because dinosaurs are cool as hell. Okay?
And so now it's like,
and this is the same problem.
The
So-
elephant flew.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah, and exactly the elephant Dumbo. It's like a big deal at the end of Dumbo when Dumbo flies. Everyone was like, "What the heck? That's crazy."
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, they're just like, "Huh, interesting."
Yeah. That's why the flying scene
So bizarre.
It was impactful in the first one because it was at the end. But like I
and
said,
it was
when
like
he starts flying
as far as
early in
we've
the movie,
seen,
and
these
it's
animals are have the limitations of normal animals, and it's like, oh no, he's magic, he can fly. So in the movie, Pink Elephants happens, right? But it's this like bubble show.
yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, that's weird. But then the bubbles start like morphing and stomping on each other. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You were hiring from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Why do you need a flying elephant when you have witches working for you who can do this bubble magic? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bubbles can't do that. How are you doing this? And no one seems to care. They're just like,
So it's these
what
people.
universe do these people live in
it's
that
these
this
people-
stuff is mundane? I don't understand.
It's these people. There's like these clowns, and they're dipping these ropes into like the bubbly water, and they're shaping them, and then
That's like Showgirls.
They're moving them, and they're basically blowing these bubbles with shapes in them, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And then it shows them like shaking the ropes a little bit, and somehow it's making the bubbles.
It's doing like
actual
it's
dance.
basically the
actual
animation
dance.
from the original Dumbo
Yeah.
in bubbles, and I'm like, hold the phone. That's pretty impressive. Why do you need? How are you not making money? He's like, we sold out all the tickets. So you've already sold the tickets. How are you not making money? What is JP Morgan waiting for? You can sell out. It is a 1,000 people packed stadium unless you're like, hey, everyone gets it for free. Then yeah, you're a bad businessman. Okay.
But I think the sad part about that though is that it's either Danny DeVito or the guy he's talking to says, hey, pink elephants, and then the other one, whether it's Danny DeVito or the other guy, responds and just goes, so what?
Yeah,
Or
I know.
something
And I was like, I'm sorry,
And I'm like,
what?
all right,
What
so you're-
magical world do you live in that this is considered mundane?
Yeah, I was like, I just did not get that because that's almost a shot at the original, whether we liked it or not. That's them stabbing at the original and saying,
Yeah.
"What a stupid thing to do."
I mean-
and I thought that was in bad taste considering that still at the time would be the equivalent of a very big animated feat. Like it was stunning and it had purpose within the movie at the time. Whether you think it's a good, and they already jabbed fun at the fact that you shouldn't give Dumbo alcohol. One of the guys is like, "Oh, let's celebrate," and and he comes in with a bottle, and the dad is like, "Hey, how about we don't give alcohol to the baby?" And they all laugh, and I'm like, okay, well that's them making fun of it, like that's cool. But then they make fun of pink elephants, and I'm like, pink elephants is still kind of iconic, whether we thought it was a fever dream or not. That's an iconic thing of the
I
time.
mean, it definitively was a fever dream. The question was a good fever dream or a bad fever dream?
And to make fun of it, I was like, why? This is your movie. This is what you're making the movie about.
Well, as the new Snow White is teaching us on her press
It
tour,
was made it was
the
87
recipe
years
for
ago.
success
Dumbo
is
is
to crap
dreaming about the
over
leader
the
he can
original.
be if he's fair and brave and true. He's not going to get saved by a princess.
Oh my gosh, how
Anyways,
infuriating!
apparently got delayed. So, oh no,
Hope it
we
gets
don't have to
canceled.
watch it for another year. Yay.
cow,
We're going to have to watch that when it comes out. You know that.
No White and the Seven Dwights.
So then
should just keep
Vandermeer does something that's so stupid, and he only does it so that his character can get his comeuppance. So during their escape, they fly to the control tower for all of Dreamland, and Dumbo just like shuts off the power. Vandermeer runs up the stairs. That was pretty funny. He's running with his guards, and he's like, "Get up that tower and stop them." He's like, "But sir, the elevators are." I was like, "I thought we invented stairs," and I was like, "Yeah, those guards are dumbasses." He's right. But so he runs up the stairs, and he's like, "Quick, turn everything back on." They're like, "Sir, we need to wait. We need to like prime the circuits again, or it might explode." And he's like, no. And so he starts throwing switches. Then he starts bashing the
Yeah.
controls with his stick. And you're like,
Yeah, at that point, when I was watching, I was literally like, okay, so this guy went from, hey, I'm a little impatient and I want to get things back online, to I'm literally just going to try to destroy my own.
and then and then what ends up happening is he's
the
smashing
board.
the control circuits, and shocker, the control circuits spark, and then instead of cutting power to everything, it does the Star Trek thing where everything explodes, which not really how if you cut off the electricity
Logical.
source to something, it doesn't then explode unless electricity was like stopping it from exploding, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But hey, it's the Star Trek thing where, oh, we got shot, my console exploded, oh no, I'm dead now. But so everything lights on fire and Dreamland burns to the ground. Now, here's the problem with that. Before Dreamland burns to the ground, they clearly showed that when Dumbo cut the power, a bunch of rides like roller coasters and Ferris wheels stopped moving. There are probably, I would estimate, 100 people, if not more, dead, burned in a fire because of Dumbo. They kind of imply that everyone got out, but I call BS. You know how long it would take to evacuate a roller coaster that is stuck on the highest point? Vandermeer burns the thing down in 5 minutes.
So you're saying Dumbo should be in jail?
I'm saying, well, Vandermeer caused the fire.
Well,
His fault.
his mom-
Vandermeer should be in
his
jail.
mom
They're just like,
did
ha
murder
this old
somebody.
man, what's
Yes,
ho?
he
This old
takes-
man
he-
got his comeuppance.
he
Oh no,
takes
my
after his
stocks, good
mother.
lord, by Jove. And it's like, no. He just committed a whole lot of manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dumbo and his mom go to India, and then they reopen the thing with the elephants, and it's just like, just nothing in the movie that they established ended up mattering. They're just like, well, this needs to happen, so this character is going to do something, even though we either haven't established that they do that, or they're going to do something that we established they don't do. Like Vandermeer, for all intents and purposes, was just a conniving businessman, but he wasn't like an insane psychopath. But then when the plot needs him to be, he's an insane psychopath, smashing the keyboard, smashing the controls, blowing up his own dreamland. And then at the very end, Vandermeer's like standing at the entrance of Dreamland watching the thing that he's built from the ground burn to the ground. And JP Morgan looks at Danny DeVito and says, want to get a hot dog? I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, that
Makes
seemed
no sense.
It's in poor taste.
Just the movie is just soulless. It's exactly what you said. Nothing makes any sense. They set up all this stuff and none of it matters. Nothing matters. No character does anything in line or out of line with their character because they're just pieces on a chessboard moving to the conclusion of the plot, which we know because it's the same as the plot from 100 years ago. Ish.
Not, I mean,
I'm
but,
rounding.
but that's what I'm saying. Like,
It's just so frustrating. All right, rant over.
So you didn't like it?
So, in other words, 5 out of 10.
He loved it.
The IGN, 7 out of 10.
But like, that's my whole thing. Like, there wasn't really any theme to the movie, which is why you would call it soulless.
No. And what's even frustrating about it is there
you said your
could
rant was
have
over.
been themes. There were themes that were there that they said, like the guy missing an arm, or the kid being a scientist, or they're missing their mom. And the only payoff for that is, oh, okay, yeah, here's the part that I actually was
done.
like, I thought I was done, but I wasn't done. Here's the part where I was like, I actually thought I was taking crazy pills. Let me put my hat back on. Okay.
Do the voice modulator.
Here's the part where I thought I was actually taking crazy pills. Now listen here, boy. I'm going to explain this once and one time only. Now
He
listen.
doesn't even know that it's on.
As established early on. Did you mute me?
No.
I will come with
No,
it.
you're on the.
You have
On
an
the microphone. Now listen here.
old-timey,
Now I'm going to explain this once. I need you to listen to you use your pea brain and listen to every syllable that comes out of my mouth. Okay. Now they established very early on that Dumbo cannot fly without his feathers, right? He needs to be holding a feather, although for some reason he snorts it into his trunk, which one would think makes him sneeze, but it does not, except for one time it does. He has to be holding onto a feather in order to fly. They established this very early on. During the heist, when he is up on the platform with Colette, she gives him the feather, and he goes, I don't need this shit, yeets the feather, and then flies. And I was like, oh, that's the point. He realizes he doesn't need the feather. Then later, when they're stuck in the fire, she's like, you don't need the feather to fly. Here, let me take this key that's my last memento of my mom. I don't need this. Eats it into the fire, and then Dumbo realizes he doesn't need the feather. Except he already flew into the feather! He already did. You already had that plot point, damn it! It was I had to go back and double check. It was 5 minutes earlier. You already did that. Am I crazy? I was literally sitting there saying, am I taking crazy pills? You already did that. You can't go back and say, don't worry, Dumbo, you don't need your feather to fly. He already flew without the feather.
Wow. We'll clip that
Now
one.
my rant is over.
We'll clip that one.
Now my rant is over.
Tough to follow that. Hey, you guys remember that Jakob guy?
I do.
Yeah, let's just hear from Jakob. I've got
Wait,
nothing.
what? Are you not excited about the letter from Jakob?
No,
I
you
don't
know what?
understand.
I think Jakob could give us a little change of pace here. I think I'm on a sad note now, and
Do you want to read it?
Am I wrong about that? Tell me wrong.
let's. How about you read us? You read us.
You want me to read it?
I can read it. I can read it, or you can read it.
I think let's let Liam read
right,
this
Liam.
one. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
You got to find the Jakob music.
I gotta find the
Did
Jakob
I
music.
jump that on you a little quick? You weren't prepared for that.
We're good here.
Jakob.
the Yamas.
All right, so
The
ladies
to-
and
the
gentlemen,
Yamos.
ladies and gentlemen,
Letters from Jakob.
from time to time, we get letters from a good friend of ours, Jakob. He lets us know
Well,
what
a
he
good
thinks about
enemy
the
of
movie.
ours.
He's actually not a friend
An
at all.
acquaintance.
He's not a friend. We
And-
actually despise him actively.
All right,
And he never
so
has anything positive to
Let's
say.
see what he has to
It's true.
say.
He's a very negative person.
A videographer and a chemist walk into a podcast studio. What do you get? A lackluster episode. That's what.
Whoa now.
Good to see
Hold on.
Liam back. He's carrying this whole thing on his shoulders.
Classic.
That was very nice.
Like
Jakob
you.
really write
No,
this?
he's my.
Are you
we're like
sure?
kind of related.
I don't
Are you
think
Yeah,
sure?
you know, Jakob
Because
wrote this.
last time I saw Jakob, he was like, "Yeah, Liam, I don't know what to talk to."
I
you
have it
guys."
right here in my
continue,
notes.
continue.
Anywho, Dumbo, more like dumb movie,
I mean, he's not wrong.
more like dumb racist undertones,
Again, he's not wrong.
more like dumb animal cruelty.
Again, I don't think he's
He
wrong.
likes his
What the heck?
puns. He likes his puns. This one might be the most problematic Disney story of them all. It's hard to look past the sinister, deeper meanings here. Jim Crow? Cancelable powder keg, if you ask me. For shame.
Fair enough.
What a negative. That was
It
it.
wasn't negative. Did he have anything to say about the live action? He probably loved the live action.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, hold on. Actually, I love the live action.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what he said.
well, that
It's
sounds
funny.
about right.
Like his actual takes about the movies weren't that bad. It was really just his takes about Liam and the show
Yeah,
that were
I
really
agree.
bad.
I mean,
honestly.
I thought there's something of merit there in that
Something
first
there.
paragraph.
I
but
don't know. That sounded a little sussy.
That's why Jakob tunes in for me.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Because
Jakob.
when he gave me the Oppenheimer letter, he was like, I just don't want to talk to Liam. We're having a different. I guess you guys made up. That's
It's like
good.
a
That's good. You
love-hate
guys,
type
yeah.
of
It was
relationship.
good that you guys mended that relationship because man, he was furious that last time.
I don't know if it's good. I actually don't like having him in my life.
It just
Well,
seemed-
apparently he likes you on the podcast, so that's positive. I guess.
I think as an overall takeaway though of the live action is just that you have a movie in the original that is very easy to understand and the theme is there, and the live action virtually has no theme as far as like, okay, maybe the end you're trying to say hey, it's about animal conservationists because like the kids
They didn't say anything about that.
don't have any arc but at the end Dumbo is released, like
Yes,
that's like the main
yes.
plot
Is he
of the
set
movie
free?
is that we need to get him back to Asia, whatever kind of.
I guess.
it's a certain
India. It probably
Yeah.
he was an Indian elephant. Looked like.
So, I guess that's the plot of the movie. But other than that,
I guess, but they
everybody-
mentioned that like once, and then at the end,
Yeah, that's
they're
me
like, we
trying
don't
to-
lock our animals up. Like,
Yeah,
well,
that's-
maybe you should if it's like a crocodile.
And one of them's already killed somebody. You
Right,
absolute
true. Well,
peanut
no,
of a
two of
they
them
person.
put
have
that.
been
They put that. Mrs. Jumbo's back in India. She can't kill anyone now. They got her out of there.
But anyways, so yes, new one is just. It just seemed like it had so many opportunities. Like it could have done a lot of things, and it just chose to be an empty, useless movie.
Empty, useless. It wasn't even like offensively bad. It was just
It was kind of a waste of time. It also
Boring.
we
Which
haven't
is
even-
almost
we-
worse.
We haven't even
It was
talked about the
boring.
runtime, but this one's like 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's an extra hour of a completely new story. This is the most, I would say, out of all of them. This was the most like the original had an identity as a movie, and the second one could have not even been the same movie. It wasn't even like Peter Pan, where they used the elements of Neverland and they used the name of Peter Pan. This one just had no. It was effectively about a family that was trying to save an elephant, and that has nothing to do with the original.
If they hadn't named the elephant Dumbo, you could have been forgiven for thinking that it had nothing to do with Dumbo, other than an elephant flying, which is fairly unique. It's funny because I'm hard pressed to tell you which one between this and Peter Pan and Wendy I had the less enjoyable time watching. They both infuriated me, but this one infuriated me for being like a poorly constructed, like one of the most poorly constructed movies I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Just everything from the movie standpoint is just done so poorly. Whereas Peter Pan and Wendy, I think, is just like actively toxic in its message.
Yeah,
its message is so heinous that I think I prefer. I think it's worse in that sense. But which was least Peter Pan and Wendy was only an hour and a half, right? It wasn't that long. I don't think it was that long.
It might have been.
I don't think it was that long. I don't think it was that long. Let's see.
It felt like it was 4 hours.
I mean, it felt long, but I don't think
they
it was
were
one of the
both
long
bad
ones.
in their own ways. But I would agree. I think that Peter Pan and Wendy mainly it's the message and the theme that was just trash.
Hour 46.
Yeah.
This Dumbo's only
So
hour.
wasn't that-
It wasn't that. It was
49.
pretty marginal difference.
Dumbo was like 2 hours and 7 minutes.
Hour 52.
And whereas this
They were both
movie,
egregious.
like you said, it was just poorly constructed. I felt like it was maybe a little closer to The Lion King in the sense that it just felt
I can see that.
unnecessary and useless.
Although it so let's but as we wrap up, and this is something we'll revisit when we finish
Sure.
up. What do you think has been the biggest gap between the original and the live action? Because so I think as much as I hated Beauty and the Beast, as much as I hated Lion King, so far, even though Peter Pan hasn't been my favorite movie, the gap between my enjoyment of Peter Pan and my enjoyment of Peter Pan and Wendy was monstrous.
right.
I think Dumbo, even though, again, it was just unexpected because I loved Beauty and the Beast, I loved Lion King, I loved Aladdin, although live action Aladdin was pretty decent, so that was, it didn't have as far to fall.
Yeah.
But the gap from original Lion King to live action Lion King is pretty big, but mostly just because
That
it's
was-
just like
that was my
it just
thought.
falls flat and everything. But this one was just painful. It's so even though original Dumbo isn't high in my ranking,
Yeah. It might.
that live action was just so painful to watch. It's a huge gap for
It's
me.
accented hugely because you watch the original and you take an hour and you watch a movie that is virtually not offensive. I mean, it's well,
Yeah, it's like even if you're not-
controversial,
even if you're
but
not thinking- well, sure.
not offensive in the sense that the message is fine and clear, and
and even if
it's
you're-
a sweet thing to watch,
and
there's not a whole lot to love or to hate. It's just kind of like a small
it's
thing.
just a movie. And the thing is, even if you don't care about the messaging of that movie, it's still like a visually fun movie. Like it's
Sure.
it's a well animated cartoon,
Yeah.
right? So it's visually inoffensive, other than the racist crows, right? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So the jive crows.
There we go.
You a jive sucker. But so you can enjoy if you had Dumbo muted,
Right.
you could still get something out of it. You can still get visual
Yeah.
clarity out of watching it. Like there's visual stimulation there. New Dumbo, again, it's this almost all the live action ones, except Aladdin was okay about this. Almost all the live action ones, I feel like I'm watching it through a coffee filter.
It's just gross
It's
to
dark
look at.
and brown. It's like dark
really-
brown, which
It's really
tells
nasty
me
to look at.
Which
It's
tells
just
me
not
that it was filmed in front of a green
visually-
screen, and they're like, "Oh, this scene's supposed to take place at night," so they artificially darken it. We didn't need to ask Jay. Well, you know about this,
Yeah.
right? It looks artificially darkened because it's like it's equally dark everywhere, and it's like a weird sepia filter.
I felt that way
to
about
it.
the Peter Pan one too.
Yeah.
I thought the lighting or whatever
The
the,
li-
technical
the lighting
term
is very
seemed the
unnatural.
same.
Well, you're always
Because
Peter
like,
Pan and
because like when
Dumbo.
we watch Oppenheimer, there's that scene like when they're doing the Trinity test. It takes place completely at night, but all the lighting is from like headlights
Yeah.
and torches and things like that, and so the light is being cast very naturally. So things are lit up, but other things are in complete darkness. Whereas this is everything's just dim, like
Yeah.
you closed your eyes somewhat or you have something over your face.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
I have to imagine it's
why?
artificially dark.
Why is that?
Well,
though?
anything that's going to be shot digitally, not like, well, actually, yes. If you actually shoot it in with digital cameras rather than on film itself, like you're going to get less of a dynamic range. And I explained this a little bit in the Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
episode.
but it's not even that a dynamic
but
range.
I know what you're saying. Like, but as far as like things just looking artificially lit.
Litten.
I mean, you're right. Like the vast majority, I would guess, of everything that you saw in the live action Dumbo is just filmed in a studio. Maybe there was
but
some
here's the thing.
shots.
So if we look at Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, as far as I remember, it had very bright colors.
But
so
I mean,
why in the more recent live action movies has everything been just dimmed.
Well, I would say that might be a great comparison, considering that that Alice in Wonderland is a fever dream, and you'll probably just get tons of live,
but the thing is, like,
crazy
even the pink elephant scene
colors
was
and-
dimly lit, and that's the fever
Yeah.
dream portion. So I just
well,
don't get it.
it
It's
is-
like
it is
it's so
weird.
unenjoyable.
You think if
Why,
they're-
especially when you're doing a movie for kids, why
That's
would you
what I
not
was
just
gonna
put as many bright colors as you
Right.
possibly could in there, just to have some visuals? That's one of the things that makes these movies unpleasant. Is it's just not visually stimulating. It's like looking at mud.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
that's the problem, is that you get a lot of these Disney, like the original versions, going, hey, we're going to spend some time appreciating the animation because this is a feat at the time. Like, we have people actually drawing these. Like, it's kind of art that's moving and talking, but let's take a minute to look at the art. Let's have scenes where we fly around the fish in the sea, or we take an extended look at the chandelier, or whatever the case is in these different movies. Whereas when you do that in these the modern remakes, you're like, oh no, put it away. you're like, wait, don't
but-
show me more of this garbage.
But the thing is, it's
CGI.
not even that the CGI is garbage, which it is. It's that everything is just dark, and I don't get someone. I have to imagine that whoever's doing the editing, it looks brighter on their screen, and then when they put it out, it's like,
They're like, oh boy.
it doesn't look the same.
They're like, oh shoot, I shouldn't
like,
have edited in
ooh,
yeah, it's like
Ray-Bans.
depressing.
right. So it's like, yes.
or the opposite.
Yeah,
I
the
guess.
opposite. They get their eyes dilated, and then they go and edit, and like, wow, everything's too bright. Better turn it on down. Let me just slide these gamma sliders down. Just a little bit. It's just so frustrating, because it's like, I would have enjoyed all of these movies more if I could see what the hell was happening.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of scenes, but
But yeah,
okay. So
Dumbo
overall
2019,
thoughts.
throw it in the damn trash
Yeah,
can. Original
real bad.
Dumbo. I mean, it's all right.
It's all right.
I think original Dumbo should be played for your kids a lot. I think that movie
Sure.
is
Yeah,
just
I
so
think the
sweet.
message that it's okay
And
to get
it's
drunk
so-
is really important for your kids to learn.
Yeah,
early.
underage
gosh.
drinking. Let's push that.
Super important, and that all black people are crows.
Crows.
I think it's also an important lesson for my kids to not learn, because I'm not racist, Greg.
Craig. All right, so Liam,
Yeah,
It's your
it's your first time back in a while.
I'm back.
And you have something special. You get a special privilege.
I get a
that
gift?
You get to pick. I'm going to give you the rundown of the next 5 movies we
Let me
have to
stop
get
you there.
through. Okay.
I already know what I want.
Yep.
Okay.
We cannot. We got to mix it up.
Yeah,
with
we
these
need something-
trash movies.
Okay, so to for those of you who are watching along, we have 5 movies left.
I was about to do this, and then I got put down, and then Nathaniel's like, "Oh, thank God!"
Nathaniel,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
take it over. Why don't you go, Nathaniel?
We got to give the people what they want, Greg. And it's me. It's me. It's me.
Nathaniel, go ahead.
I threw my other hat across the room, so I'm going to wear this one.
Now, see, well, the movies we got left here, we got Mulan, and we're saving that one for last because, by all accounts, the animated Mulan is one of the best things that Disney has ever put to production. And if you argue with me, I will find you and I will stab you. Then we've got Cinderella. We got live action by Kenneth Branagh, which by all accounts is pretty good. We've got The Jungle Book with Bill Murray as Baloo, which by all accounts is pretty good. And then we have Pinocchio, which by all accounts is a fever dream to hell, and created by Satan himself to show us that life is not worth living. And then we have
Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp, which was now, dear listener, I want you to think about Lady and the Tramp. Think about that one iconic scene where they're eating the spaghetti and they kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember a single damn other thing from that entire movie? And I bet you can't unless you recently watched it. So who knows if the live action will be any good? I don't think so. I don't believe it will be any good.
So those are our
But those
5
are our options. Mulan,
And-
Lady and the Tramp, Cinderella,
Okay, well,
Greg, go
and
ahead.
Jungle Book,
Thank you.
and
you're getting
Pinocchio.
You're dangerously close to getting muted here. Okay,
Would be the first mute.
Wow,
in
salty
podcast
Greg over
history.
here.
I mean,
Would be the first mute.
okay. Liam,
yeah,
why
yeah.
don't you tell us what the next?
That's the hat. That looks like the hat that Hannibal Lecter wears at the end of Silence of the Lambs as he's walking off to like kill the one guy. Anyway, had to bring that up. But we're gonna do The Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Love. Whoa.
I actually hit the wrong button.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I thought. Bill Murray, man, love me some Bill Murray. I think, if anything,
Yes.
Bill Murray can raise the stoke of what we're
I also
doing. Here.
like
I'm more
the-
excited for Louis Prima.
I like the original. I love the original Jungle. I think it's great.
I'm
So
excited
I'm
to
really
watch it.
excited about it.
It's been a
King
long
Louis is
time.
a trip. Baloo is hilarious.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I watched
What's the name of the
Jungle Book,
panther?
Bagheera.
Bagheera.
So, yeah, so I'm really excited for
And
that.
Shere Khan, who's just like, I hate humans because humans humans are violent and horrible, and you're like,
And then
is Shere Khan not the bad guy?
And then do you not remember? Do you guys remember Khan?
Oh, Ka, the anaconda that
Oh, the
attacks
anaconda.
people.
Yeah, the anaconda. Yeah. It's
And
good.
it's the voice of. I want to say it's the voice of Piglet.
No, it's the voice of Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, it's Winnie the Pooh
the same
again?
voice
Yeah.
of the stork. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will be doing Jungle Book next week. We really hope you guys tune in for that. We'd be excited to see you guys around. And
We've moved to Tuesdays.
yes, as you guys can tell,
To Tuesdays.
as you have gathered,
Today
we are nonsense.
is a
people.
Tuesday.
Scheduling conflict.
Schedule.
We're busy
conflict.
people, but we take time out
Yes,
to
indeed.
do this for you guys.
If you want to listen to our audio versions of these podcasts, we are on Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. Dearly Debated. We're obviously on this YouTube channel, Dearly Debated. And Greg and I do another show, The Kitchen Chemist, which the trailer for season 2 will drop on Saturday. Be looking for that. And Liam, what's your LinkedIn?
Liam Maxwell.
If you want to find Liam on LinkedIn,
Liam
If you want to
Maxwell.
hire Liam,
It's going to be the top. It's
he's a
gonna be the
nice
top search
boy.
result.
Look, he's a nice boy. He's not very
if you
talented,
want Liam's
but he can
phone
learn.
number, I'll give it out
CEO
now.
of Bank of America. So won't be hard to find.
He's bankrolling this whole thing.
Guys, we love to have audience interaction, so definitely tune in next, 2 weeks from today
2 weeks.
at 8 p.m.
Cha-cha.
on our new night, Tuesday nights.
Tuesday
And we
nights.
will talk about all things Jungle Book.
Jungle Book.
We want to hear your questions, your thoughts. Message us. Let us know what you think. And until next time.
Show us your cosplay Bagheera persona.
We'll be wearing cosplay.
We'll be
for
wearing
the next
cosplay, of course. Obviously, we will come in our personas, if you will.
See you later.
Bye.